Howdy, everyone. We'll get started very, very soon. Please do bear with me. I'll just start bringing our first guest on, and then we'll see who wants to join in. As per usual, I will pop in a link in the Discord. Oh, I know what I want to do. I want to put that on that. Okay, very good. And here we go for the Discord announcements. Very good. Okie dokie, I think we're good to go. All right. Guys, if you do want to take part, just throw your hand up as per usual in the old town hall, and we'll go from there. Oop, bear with me. My wife just called. I've just got to call her back for 1 second. I'm just going to put myself on mute for 30 seconds. I know this isn't great stream content, guys, but just bear with me as I call my lovely wife back. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, let's get some people in here. My wife's out of town, so it's just a quick check-in call. Just to say hello. Chain Meta wants in. If anyone wants in, this is what you do. Right-click on your profile picture, put your hand up, and I'll get you in here. So just let me know. Hey, Chain, how you going?
Hey, Josh, you weren't muted there in case you just wanted to know.
That's all right. I figured I might have actually hit the wrong button, but like even when I think I'm muted,
just let you know.
No, thank you, mate. Even when I think I'm muted, I think that people can see that nothing controversial gets said.
All good. Yeah. Hopefully, Doug is doing all right.
Yeah. Just that's my dog. He's been doing this thing. Just I noticed yesterday he never normally does. Like normally I take him out in the backyard and he just pisses and that's it. It's a one shot, he's done. He's not a big like marker, at least in our backyard. But just over the last 12 hours, he's been like trying to piss like 5 or 6 times and just consistently attempting to. He is getting stuff out, so it's not like there's a blockage, but he just won't stop trying to piss in the backyard. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. And I looked it up and it's like, could be his bladder, could be something. So yeah, maybe just to check at the vet just in case.
Absolutely.
As you do. Craig, mate, how are you?
They're the children.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm good, buddy. How are you doing?
Good, mate. Good. Thanks for coming along. Oh, I think what I did, Shane, I was muted on stream, but not on the Discord.
Yeah, as soon as you got on the phone, I actually DM'd you to tell you he wasn't muted.
No, all good. Thanks, mate. Ubiquitous, mate. How are you?
I'm good. How you going?
Good, mate. Good. We should probably get started, boys, or everyone's going to leave the angry YouTube comments going like, why do you start these streams when you're clearly not ready to fucking start the podcast? So let's get into it. Guys, if we say something that interests you as we're going, I'll keep saying it. You know the drill. Put your hand up, jump in. It's a community conversation. All right, here we go. I shall start the recording. All right, so here we are checking in on January 11, Australia time, and I just wanted to have a quick 2-hour call, which you can all laugh at, but there's nothing like incredibly meaty or controversial to dive in this call. This will just be the other half of the episode we recorded the other day with Ubiquitous about the rogue tanking and the Warsong Gulch pre-meeting issue. So I figured we'd talk about some other stuff right now and just do a little bit of Season of Discovery cleanup, if you will, just talking about myriad issues, just a little bits and pieces here and there that we figure we should probably sound off on moving into the next phase. Now, a lot of you will be saying, Josh, baby, phase 1 review, where is it? And a lot of you have DM'd me about that. Trust me, we will do it, just not today. I thought it was a little bit better if we just squeezed every last minute we can get out of the phase before reviewing it. So we'll do that in 2 weeks' time, guys, and that will be a doozy. You will want to tune in for the phase 1 review. I'm really looking forward to it. But don't worry, it's not like you're getting a half-assed podcast today. Let's dive into it and introduce the guests. As per usual, mate, I feel like I owe you many beers, Ubiquitous. You are a fucking workhorse for this show. I cannot thank you enough for all the wonderful opinions and great conversation you've helped contribute for the community. I'm sure everyone will back me in saying a big thank you. Mate, how are you?
I'm good. You've caught me on my usual fuck all morning, like nothing else to do, so happy to participate as always.
Well, you're still on holidays, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why you're slamming some WoW while you can.
Yeah, exactly. Fit it in before I go back to work next week.
Beautiful. Also joining us, you've heard him on the show before, Craig, welcome back, mate.
Thanks, man. I missed the first announcement about the podcast recording. I only seen the second one, so I'm balls deep in a BFD with some pugs right now.
Oh, very good. You'll have to keep us updated on how you go with that one.
It's going terrible.
Oh, lovely. They're just as fun, those stories as well, the bad ones along with the good. I had quite a bit of a shaky alt run last night with the guild as well, where it's funny because I think I was on the podcast not 10 days ago going, mate, we've all worked it out now. This fucking BFD is a pushover, blah, blah, blah. But I think I experienced last night, we've now had a couple of alt runs in the guilds. Like, whilst BFD is easy and we're all smashing it, it's still content that an incredible, like if you just dinged 25 a couple of hours ago and you're still wearing a few pieces from level 16, 17, 18, yeah, if you're with a bunch of those people in BFD, you're probably still going to get hard stuck at Kilris, as we experienced last night. But I'll go more into that later. Chain Meta, mate, thank you so much for joining us as well.
Thanks for having. I was in the last one, but my power went out, so I literally mid as we were in there, I didn't get to tell you, hey, I gotta or anything, and I just lost all power and didn't come back till it was over in the last chat.
No, all good, mate. All good.
So,
I appreciate you making up for lost time here today. Look, guys, let's dive straight into it. And like I said, we might be a little bit all over the place today, so I do apologize if there's not as much structure. But maybe we'll cover off on some changes that we've gotten over the last couple of days and just get your thoughts on them. I guess I would be remiss not to lead off with the big news. And it's funny, I didn't send out a Discord notification about this. Every other Discord did. It was all over Twitter and whatnot. February 8th, we got it. Phase 2. That's the big date for the next step in Season of Discovery. I figured that everyone finds out. They don't need me to tell them in the Discord, although I should really still do it. But look, I won't lie. I thought it was going to be late January, around Australia Day. That's January 26th for you non-Aussies. I just felt like that was 8 weeks. It felt about right. But they've opted for the 10-week decision. And look, nobody is complaining, it seems. I see very few complaints of oh, this is way too long. What do you mean I've got to wait another fucking month? I think, look, here's what I'll say. I completely understand why they've done it. And if I were in charge, I'd probably do the same thing. But from a selfish perspective, I do wish it was 2 weeks earlier, around that very late January mark. It's not that I've run out of things to do, But I mean, we are talking about another month. We're kind of only 60% of the way through phase 1 right now. So I think people will be more than ready for it by the time it drops. But always good to get a date. And also, it's a clap back for everyone who thinks that I'm worded up and on the inside and in the know and, Josh gets all these predictions right. Nope. I fucking don't. I absolutely know nothing about what's going on with this game behind the scenes. Ubiquitous, fair bait. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think February 8th is probably 2 weeks further away than what I thought. I've got no idea if it's because Ruby Sanctum comes out next week and they just wanted to space shit out, even though that's Wrath.
That 100% comes into the equation.
But yeah, I think it's a little bit too long. I don't know if I'm just making things up, but I swear that it was like estimates of 6 to 8 weeks, and this is 10 weeks. So they've moved the scheduling a little bit.
They gave a few estimates, and whilst I don't think, like, I was always saying pre-launch that I personally felt 6 weeks was a great number. That was pre-launch. While playing SOD, I adjusted that and said, you know what? I think I was wrong. 6 weeks does feel a bit quick. I reckon 8 weeks is a good number. We're getting 10. That's fine. And again, look, there are still players out there. Guys, look, some of you sweatier guys might scoff at this, but I fucking guarantee you there are a bunch of players out there that don't have 125 yet. They've been hammered IRL. They got the wife. They've got the 25 kids, all that shit. Look, we joke, but it's true. And there are people, like I know we've got a old friend and long-time listener of the show who I think is still only level 23 or 24. He only gets to play a couple of hours a week, and that's fine. It's fucking life comes at you real fast. Blizzard has the data, and I'll bet you they're sitting there going like, yeah, we think we have the time to allow more people to get 1 or 2 25s up and running. But as you say, Ubiquitous, absolutely the patches that are dropping or whatever in retail and in Wrath will factor in. They want people to have a bit of time with them before dropping more SOD content. That will all be part of the plan. Shane, Craig, who wants to go first? What do you guys reckon?
Mine's pretty quick. I'll just get it out there real quick. This is the first time I've played Classic, so, with playing retail, waiting 6 months for the next raid seems long. So, I mean, I don't mind. I feel like it's good pacing for me, personally.
All right.
Yeah, I knew it was going to come after Ruby, and they don't really want to talk to people who play both, because if they brought it before, people who are just playing Wrath just to kind of still kind of play it will probably most likely pick SOD, at least the people I know. And if that's running, Wrath will just even become more of a non-factor other than those people who are really wanting to do it and look towards Kata.
Very good. Boys, here's a quick tangent for you. Probably an easy answer, but I'll throw it out there anyway. Which raid of Wrath do you think the player base was least excited to get? Trial of the Crusader or Ruby Sanctum?
Probably Ruby.
Yeah.
I'd say Ruby.
Yeah, I would agree. Just purely because of the timing. Sorry, go Ubiquitous.
I agree. I think it's Ruby. It's like it does give a few bits of good loot, but it's just getting a one boss dungeon, like a one boss raid. It's not really that much more content to do. And if I remember correctly, I think the world first was like 40 minutes after it launched in original Wrath, so it's going to be a walkover for everyone this time round, and then it'll just be on farm from week 1, so it's not really adding anything more to the week.
Mm-hmm. Boys, sorry, go mate.
I was going to say it was scoffed at even when it on its original release. Like I remember, like I was running heroics and stuff like that, 1025, and when that came out, there was like the interest, but like when the main guy on the poster is dead, everything else is kind of like, oh, who's this? Why are we doing this? You're just giving us a filler.
Fair enough. I'm obviously, I've got zero interest in Ruby Sanctum, but it's just not really for me to say because Wrath hasn't really been my jam. I only played about 50% of Wrath, if that, this whole time. I've been in and out, floating in between, sort of it taking my interest. the full Wrath review maybe will be an interesting one later on the show when all is said and done. After Ruby Sanctum, we'll do that call. But it's funny because just while we're on this kind of tangent of what's going on with that universe of Classic, the progression universe where Kata's coming next, I have to admit, this will get some raised eyebrows from both you guys and the listeners. How do I phrase this correctly? I wouldn't say I'm overly excited or particularly hanging out for, but I'm quite intrigued and looking forward to playing Kata Classic. Now, what do I mean by that? I've just caught myself watching more Kata content over the last week or so, and I can tell you why. It's like I say, I'm not running out of things to do in SOD, but I have leveled 5 characters in SOD. I am, loving the game. It is my game, but there are going to be, we all know this, there are going to be peaks and valleys in terms of how much you're playing and how much your interest is retained. And there are moments where I do catch myself, like the meme, holding hands with SOD whilst keeping one eye at Kata Classic walking the other way. Now, I'm not saying Kata Classic is going to be good or some kind of grand revelation, but I'm intrigued by it for at least I've said the whole time, I'm probably going to play 2 weeks and stop. But those 2 weeks I'm going to find really, really intriguing because I want to see whether or not my memories of this game are accurate. And one thing I'm really, really keen to confirm or disprove is whether or not Kata Classic is more of the modern MMO gameplay that I've personally been looking for from WoW, because I don't like retail, but I like, I always say I like Final Fantasy 14. So it's not like I don't like modern MMOs. I'm just looking for that right flavor of modern MMO to grab me. That's not too crazy and too bloated like retail, but also is still somewhat modern. And I've maybe Kata has that. And I was robbed a bit of that in Wrath because we didn't get the, random dungeon finder tool, which I was very much so hanging out for, and we didn't get it until the very end. That's a modern tool that I've long said now on the show is a great love of mine. Whether you disagree with me or not on that, that's a separate issue. I personally love that tool, and I'm looking forward to engaging with it frequently through progressive leveling in something like a Kata Classic. So I've got my reasons. How do you guys feel about Kata Classic? Do you feel that whether or not forget maybe whether or not it's going to be good, do you feel that people will actually play it? Because I think people will.
I think for myself personally, I don't know if this will be a common amongst players, but I'm kind of just sitting on my hands. Like, I'm putting a bow on Wrath. I plan to finish raiding with it. I still like playing it. ICC was fun last night. But I'm just waiting to see what they're going to do with SOD. If it turns out that like 40 to 50 to 60 is actually really fun and there's more to do, at the moment it's actually, as someone that just kind of has my 6 hours of raid time a week, plus on top of, an hour every day or whatever to play, it's quite hard to play both as well as what you'd like to. So to continue that split between SOD and Kata, I'm kind of just waiting to pick my team, really.
Shane, Craig?
Me personally, whenever they announced Classic TBC, I got excited just because I was hoping they was going to bring Kata. It was my favorite expansion. I love the raids. I was planning on quitting retail whenever Kata come out. Unfortunately, I can't play Kata now, so I'm devoting all my time to SOD. But Kata's an amazing expansion. I feel like the raids really differ from anything we've had before, and I think a lot of people will play it just to experience those raids if they haven't done it before. Because if you talk to a lot of people, they talk about whenever Kata dropped, that's when they quit the game. But the raids really are better than a lot of them that we get before and after.
Shane, how about you?
Probably not. Like, I quit halfway through Wrath, and Wrath was my favorite. I kind of had to quit. Life kind of came out, and I was a bit of speed runner trying to sweat all through when Classic came through. So I kind of had to stop because COVID's finally over, all that other stuff, and life starts up again. And I only came back to SOD because a bunch of my buddies wanted to. It seems like you'd be a little bit more relaxed, and like, yeah, I just don't think I can. I'll probably go back to Kata
Fair enough.
because I won't know anyone else. It'll kind of just be lone wolf in it, and I do have good memories from it. It wasn't terrible. It's definitely one of the times I did kind of quit back then, but I did come back, and I probably won't. But I understand the appeal.
Fair enough.
It
Fair
just won't
enough.
be for me.
I
I'm
know.
only playing WoW just for SOD.
Fair enough. I know a lot of guilds are falling apart in Wrath, and that is for all the reasons that we've said. Pretty much gotten to the end of the game. Lich King's dead. You know, there's going to be some time before Kata comes out. Maybe that's when you spread your wings and play other games like Season of Discovery or whatnot. So it will be interesting to see whether people do decide to go into Kata fresh, find the new guild, find new friends and do that, or just sort of forego it altogether. I'll say this much, and sorry, this isn't the great Kata defense if you are thinking that this is the point I'm making by going down this tangent. This is not that. I'm on the record saying, like, I'm very skeptical of the narrative that's being created about how Kata was, you know, released well before its time, and it's like Marty McFly playing fucking Johnny B. Good in Back to the Future. Like, you all aren't ready for that yet. I somewhat disagree with that take. I think that we hear a lot of like, you all don't realize how fucking great Kata was. We all fucking played it back in the day, and people quit for a reason. So we'll see if I'm wrong. But my take on it more is that, like I say, I really want to emphasize this. Regardless of whether you think it's a phenomenal or a, you know, sort of very so-so expansion, I still think people will play it to the extent that Blizzard has really set up a really good playing field here for, you know, if we are doing 10-week phases in SOD, people will dip in and out. I think we're about to hit, you know, particularly in about a week or so. Tell me if you disagree. Look, I'm the greatest SOD stan out there, guys. I'm not sort of throwing shade at SOD, but I think in the next week or so, if we haven't seen it already, we will start to see more and more people maybe decrease their playtime with SOD. Not quit, just decrease their playtime or start to raid log. They've gotten their gear, they've leveled enough alts or whatever. They're comfortable with slashing their playtime by 30, 40, 50%, whatever it might be. Those are the junctures where, you know, Blizzard is ripe to offer the other version of the game. Hey, I see you've slashed 10 hours out of your SOD play week there. Have you considered picking up those 10 hours with Dragonflight? Have you considered picking up those 10 hours with, you know, Wrath? Or later down the track, hey, I couldn't help but notice you raid logging on SOD for the next 3 weeks. Maybe you might want to play a bit of Kata Classic, which we just launched. I just think that people will start to fluctuate a little, regardless of their great feelings on the, you know, pros or cons of Kata. Tell me, if Ubiquitous, if you think that's a wild thing to say.
No, not at all. Like, SOD doesn't take up enough of your time unless you're playing 5 or 6 characters at the moment anyway. You should have spare time that if you like playing Warcraft, you'll be able to fit in both relatively easily. Me personally, I could have leveled about 9 characters to 25 with how much time I had, but I just stopped at 2, knowing that once we hit 60, 2's about the limit of what I can play between mains and a split run in the general raid time allocation. So yeah, I think it depends. What they could change more things with Kata than what they've changed with anything else so far either. I feel like maybe SOD has given them the license. I don't know if that would upset the Kata lovers, but it does seem like, you know, career developers actually have good ideas for games like SOD, and maybe they could make changes for the better of Kata. and that would probably pull even more people in than just leaving it exactly as it is. But that's my 2 cents.
Crudef makes a phenomenal point in chat saying that, this is exactly what I just described, is exactly the Holly Longdale strategy for classic WoW and in brackets retail moving forward. And I couldn't have said it better myself, Crudef, and we don't invoke Holly's name that frequently here on the show, but like this is absolutely what she was hired for. She laid the groundwork for this roadmap. It has come to immense fruition over time. Now, I've absolutely criticized some of Holly's moves in the past. I've also praised some of her moves in the past. She's a very, very, interesting figure in the Warcraft universe in terms of what she's done for the classic franchise and, how beneficial her work has been for Blizzard in general, to the point that she's been elevated to the position that she's in now. I think that this is all going like absolutely according to plan, and they're loving, the growing pains that they had to go through were probably obviously all worth it now for where they're at with Classic. So, absolutely, I think that Holly will be, deserving of some praise. But yeah, like I say, I've been up and down on the way in which it's been done over the years, but I'm pretty happy with where we're at on the whole now. Sorry, Craig or Chain, one of you was going to say something earlier.
I was just going to say, like, one of the good things that they're doing, like, if you talk to a lot of people, the reason they quit Cataclysm was because the change of the rune system, they hated that, and just the pacing of the content. Because we had we had Dragon Soul for like 11 months before MOP come out. So them decreasing the amount of time in between content drops is going to be great for the expansion for the people that actually give it a try. I think a lot of people will like really start to talk about it in a good way instead of a negative way like it always has.
Alrighty. Guys, let's just back off this tangent. We'll go back to this February 8 talking point. We've talked about the 10-week cycle and everything. I can only presume, and, they're not going to be held down to any dates. It's not like this will be the way going forward. Everything will be now 10 weeks. Obviously, plans can change, but it's a nice little gauge to go off of moving forward. It is an interesting one when we talk about alts and whatnot. I think, like, I can use this extra time now to get some more alts up, but I've been playing a disgusting amount. Like, if I really want to, and I haven't decided whether or not I do want this, I could get every class in the game up to 25. I've got what is it? Rogue, Warrior, Warlock, Hunter, Paladin. I'm missing one. Shaman. I've got 6 25s at the moment. And I'm like, I really don't need to do the others. It would purely be for some kind of achievement, which I don't know if it's that much of an achievement. But as Ubiquitous said, like, it's killing me now. I'll spend the next 3 or 4 weeks trying to work out which class I really want to focus on in the next phase. And it's interesting to me that when they announced the February 8 date, we didn't get any extra information on the runes that will be coming in the next phase. Now, don't get me wrong, anything can happen over the next 3 or 4 weeks. They could in 2 weeks come out with a great big press junket and say, all right, here we go. We're unveiling all the new runes. Dig in, guys, decide what class you're going to play next based off of this. Or they might not. I get the impression they're not going to reveal them. Do you guys agree or disagree with that?
I don't think they'll tell us jack shit about the runes. It'll be same as phase 1. Go out there, find them, hear about it on Discord, run over to that zone to get it. And I think, like, now that we've gone and done it and you realize that, like, some runes literally weren't accessible until 20 or so, I wouldn't be surprised if a few aren't accessible until 37 or even 40. So people will have to commit to what they want to level up, or you're going to have to wait till someone else levels up to hear what runes are there, whether that's the class you want to keep playing or not. I'm a prick that likes playing rogue regardless of what they give us, so it doesn't sway me whether I know or otherwise. as to what I'm going to level.
I'm definitely not ruling it out. Like Krudef is saying, look, he's expecting the news dump to come after the next retail patch on January 17. I'm not ruling it out. I'm just the vibe I'm getting is that at this stage, with what we've heard and the way in which they did the Phase 2 announcement, it seems to me like the tone is that they're leaning not to reveal, not just by virtue of the fact that they didn't reveal them, but just like it seemed like they wanted to keep that mystery and discovery element, but anything could change. Shane, Craig, what do you feel about it?
Sorry, go ahead.
I think they'll. I hope necessary, but I think that they'll probably tell us what the runes are, but I hope they don't tell us how. Keep the mystery, but like it is also kind of good for. I prefer to know what is kind of coming down the pipe. I like to theory craft myself and kind of think of things.
Yeah, on that note, let's lean into that a little bit, Shane, because I feel the same way as you, and I can't decide whether or not I'm a piece of shit for thinking that, or whether we're pieces of shit for thinking that, Shane. And what I mean by that is, I mean, obviously I'm a piece of shit, but, you know, for various other reasons. What I mean by that is, you know, the naysayers, to your point, Shane, would say, hey man, season of discovery, dude. Like the whole point is to discover. And that's true. We really hammered that point home pre-release. But it was odd that we did that in a world where on the PR tour, they did reveal the Phase 1 runes. So it's like, do we think it's a good thing to keep that modus operandi running with like, we'll reveal the runes and have you guys salivating a little bit and also aiding you in class decision, but not telling you how to get them? That's the discovery and mystery. Or do we really lean into discovery and mystery and tell you nothing? I can't tell if I'm a piece of shit or not. Probably not. Probably.
I think the total mystery is a little over the top, just because like the only people who like people are like he said, like I'm gonna be playing my two classes regardless of what comes down the line. I'm gonna stick to a shaman and my alt's gonna be a druid, and I'm a healer. I know what comes with shaman. I'm excited by what they already gave us. I'm interested to see what they're gonna give us, but I know what's coming down the pipe, and I'm not changing. So it's like, it's also kind of, I think there's also the fun that they can get out of it by telling you, hey, there's this. And people think of ways of how they're going to try to get us to discover it. Or people try to figure out ways. I think there's the fun for them. Because like I remember when, and I got completely duped at the beginning of SOD of how do I get water shield? And people were typing in chat all over, oh yeah, you got to get to at least level 50 skill fishing, and then there's a chance you can get it. And that's exactly what I did, and that's not how you get it. And I don't know how many hours I wasted until it finally popped up of when you get it at a certain level. I think it was 20, and you just get it off a drop real easy. But I would just wasted hours fishing because I thought that's how you got it, because people were saying it enough in the general chat.
Craig, we'll turn to you to be the arbiter on this one. Answer this question. The season of discovery should be all in on the discovery factor. Tell them nothing. Fuck them. That's the point. Or we're not really, you know, breaking the wheel by giving them a little something and showing them the runes.
I mean, I definitely think they're going to show us the runes to just try to entice people that may have already stepped away from Season of Discovery to come back to it. I wish they would lean into it, though. Like, I don't want them to tell us a damn thing. Like, I want to go in not knowing what runes I'm going to get and what my class is going to play like. I feel like it'd be a lot more fun to try to discover those things. And I'm sorry you spent so many hours fishing, but that is funny. Bear and Shet was going crazy.
I laugh about it now.
Oh yeah, now. But yeah, I hope they lean into it. Like I don't want to know how many runes there is. I don't want to know, you know, what they do, where they are, anything. I mean, Wowhead's going to ruin it for us anyway. But before then, I want the mystery to be there.
I'm curious why it's not across the board, but everyone frothed over the blindness of launch, and then for whatever reason, classic community being classic community, we've let it bake and go, no, I want to know what's to come because I've liked what I've gotten so far. Now I really want to know what's to come. Whereas like for the first week, everyone was just like, "Oh, cool! There's a box in this fucking house, in this castle in Barrens. I got to go there to get Saber Slash or whatever it is." Like that was fun. Now we're falling back into our min max core, which will always be there. Like I'm one of them, but I'm telling myself that for the greater good, it would be more fun for me to just go in blind.
There's two steps to that argument though, Ubiquitous, and I agree with you and disagree with you at the same time, but they're for completely different. It's when I'm wearing different hats that I'm either nodding or shaking my head at you there. Now, as a gamer, as a player, I'm agreeing with you, saying the more mystery, the more discovery equals more fun. I do agree with that, right? But then I think of, this is where I come back to Craig's point, if I were wearing the Blizzard hat, if I were trying to market and sell this thing, personally, I think I would reveal them, because Craig raised a great point that if you want to retain the tourists, the people who are just checking out Season of Discovery as a bit of flirtation, because they saw the runes that were thrown out there and they're like, oh, vanilla paladins get to do that. Yeah, fuck it, I'll try that out. And then they did it, they had their fun, they played for 3 or 4 weeks and maybe ducked out. These runes are literally your walking, talking advertisement for the next phase, because then you throw them out there and all those tourists again go, oh, phase 2 paladins get fucking what, Howling Blast, which, apparently they're not getting, but it was, teased. I just think that that's how you get the looky-loos. Like, the serious players are going to be there regardless, but they want the looky-loos. And if I were a Grand, if I were Tim, if I were those guys, I would be hard-pressed ignoring the, allure of that PR. So it's two different arguments there, and I'm really interested to see which path they go down.
Yeah, I can see that. I wonder how much of the player base is that in comparison to, cool, thanks for all the numbers, we're going to min-max and we know that these are the 3 best runes to use for warriors and rogues and hunters next phase. And then they just patch them anyway and they change the numbers. So like, even that kind of stings both crowds. That's why I'm against letting us know, because like, all right, the casuals like, wow, that ability looks really fun. But if it's just actual dog shit, or it gets nerfed to dog shit, then they're not going to probably use it anyway. And then same for the min-max crowd. What's the point in theory crafting all this for them to go, holy smokes, that's undertuned. Here's a 300% damage buff to whatever the fuck ability it is.
Well, you'd think not, and we've talked about this before, like speculation is fun. No one is denying that. But you would think the min-maxers have somewhat learnt their lesson, after what they went through pre-launch and been burned by all the theory crafting they did before actually getting their hands on these things and how wrong they were about a bunch of shit.
Oh, they still got the clicks, mate. Doesn't matter if it's outdated information. It's got its views.
Yes, that is true. Look, it's an interesting one. Look, I'm not pushing for one or the other. Whatever they decide, they decide. While I have a preference for seeing the runes at advance, I am very self-aware of the fact that I'm looking at that as a little bit of a spoilt child, where like I said, I'm the fuckwit that's got the 5 or 6 25s or whatever, might get 1 more or 2 more before fucking phase 2 rolls around. And I want to use that information to decide that me, with all this fucking playtime under my hands, should do with what I've got moving into the next phase. Tell me the runes so I can decide what I'm, number 1, I want to pick the 3 classes of the 6 that I'm taking into the next phase. And number 2, I want to pick which of those 3 classes I'm leveling first, which one looks more fun. I don't want to spend all this time with a class that it's then revealed that you were the fucking joke of phase 2 with the runes you've got. But I am in a unique position, or a less common position, because most people and this is not about fucking, skill or being good or bad or any bullshit like that. It's just about the time that IRL has afforded you. Most people will have 1 or 2 characters. That's just the long and short of it. So my issue does not relate to them, and nor should it really be factored in. I'm arguing from, a 2% argument here of the fuckwits like me that have 1,800 characters. Oh, fucking cry poor. Woe is me. Won't someone think of the fucking content creator? So that's why I'm kind of like, whilst I have a preference, I don't necessarily think my opinion should be pushed on too hard. But I still think there are positives to come out of revealing the runes, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it must be done. Guys, anything else from Craig or Chain before we move on?
I was just going to say, going off the podcast when you were with, you did with Scotty and Blazing Bob there, when you guys got onto the rogue tank. Like, for rogues not knowing they need something, how, especially for the people that want to play rogue tank, they came back. It's been very lackluster, not knowing what you're going to get, and are they going to even give you something to solve the problem of being a rogue tank? If that's like your soul, for the people that don't have a lot of time and they're coming back for the rogue tank, and now it's kind of don't have a lot and not going to know going forward what you're going to get.
It's a great example to raise.
Rough for them.
I'll build on that, Shane. I'm so glad you brought that up, and I'd love to hear the others sort of sound off on this too. I'll give you another example, which is the Warlock tank. I tried a Warlock tank for the first time 2 days ago. Got my Metamorphosis rune, went and did a little bit of content with Old Hunk, and I might have been a little biased going in because I had heard whispers that Warlock tanking, you can do it, they're a tank, but, the fun factor is a little bit lacking, is what I'd heard. And I was like, I'll be the fucking judge of that. And I did it, and I had to unfortunately agree. And the thing I've been hammering home over the last 48 hours to anyone who'll listen is my take on the Warlock tank is that they're the mirror opposite of the rogue tank. Wait, a mirror image would obviously be the same. You fucking know what I mean. They're the exact opposite of the rogue tank, where I was on the show, and Ubiquitous might understand what I'm saying here, where I was like, the rogue tank is fun. And it's funny because Ubiquitous, you led off the rogue tanking episode saying it wasn't fun, but then I think you somewhat yielded on that point later on in the same conversation, saying, yeah, look, it's fun, the building blocks are there, but it needs more stuff to really be fully fun. So my point was, the rogue tank is fun right now. It is. There's fun elements to it, but it does come with some very unfortunate play style needs. Like we said, spending 1 combo point isn't necessarily a great feeling all the time, blah, blah, blah. But my point is this: rogue tanking fun, but not fully functional. Warlock tanking fully functional, but not fun. Do you think that's a fair statement to throw out, Ubiquitous?
Yeah. I think, rogue tanking is fun in the right situations and just horrible in others. From what I've heard about Warlock tanking, it's exactly that. They are good at the job, but it doesn't... even when you verse them in PvP, it doesn't exactly seem like a thrilling experience to put 3 dots up, drain life, and walk around clapping your hands until someone dies. So, yeah, I'd say that statement's pretty spot on.
It's just one of those things, and I'm not trying to put the boot in or anything. I'll say the same thing about Warlock tanks that I said about rogue tanks, which is, please, if you can, if you happen to have the benefit of time, try one before really sort of judging it. But everyone I've talked to, and it's not that many people, but the 5 or 6 people I know in my little circles on the OCE server that have tried Warlock tanking, unprompted, have all said the same thing. It's just not fun. Mate, this thing just isn't fucking fun. I don't get a kick out of playing this. Yeah, I'm a tank, but I'm not having the same joy that a shaman tank elicits out of me or what have you. And the funny thing is, we all kind of go, it's such a shitty thing to say, but we all kind of go I can't quite put my finger on why. Some of them are going like, searing pain, spam just isn't really all that fun. Some of them go, fucking, I wish I could cast more of my abilities in form, blah, blah, blah. But it's just like that certain je ne sais quoi, as us wankers say, with the Warlock tank. But, what were we talking about again? I've gone crazy, guys. Why was I talking about Warlock tanks?
Just the difference on how it's not fun to play, but it's viable, but the rogue, fun, but not viable.
That's right. I'm just wondering what brought me down this point again. I'm losing my mind. Either way. Oh, no, that's right. I remember now because you raised the great point, Chain, of what we got, as Ubiquitous and yourself, raised this point of needing to know certain things before moving into the next phase. And the reason I've just given it that very long preamble about Warlock tanking is, imagine you're a Warlock tank enthusiast. You heard about Warlock tanking coming into Season of Discovery, and you're like, fuck yeah, that sounds sick. I'm going to be a Warlock tank, baby. That's going to be my whole fucking, persona in Season of Discovery. Then you do this, then you might think, like I'm suggesting, you're one of those people that, oh, fuck, this has fallen a bit flat. This isn't as fun. I've invested all this time in this character, and the thing I really wanted to do isn't that fun yet. And I'll always underline that word yet. There might be something wild coming in Phase 2. But that's a might. Imagine you go, all right, I'll keep on with the Warlock tank in Phase 2. Blizzard's told me nothing of what's coming with the runes. I have no idea. I have to discover and put my faith in the design team. And then you get that Warlock all the way up to 40. You've put in another 30 odd hours in this character, foregoing other classes. And then your discovery was that there were either no new Warlock tanking runes or nothing really that helped you out. You'd be bummed. And this is why I'm sort of raising this argument of like, it wouldn't be that much of a pain in my mind to unveil the runes so that you can see whether your favorite archetype is getting the love or something that you think will be fun to play in the next phase. You can use that to help aid your decision, as opposed to discovering that you maybe picked the wrong class. I say that somewhat tongue-in-cheek because Blizzard's whole thing is you should be playing the class and spec you love regardless of knowing what's coming in Season of Discovery. That's the whole point. Play what you love and we'll look after you. But I think that unfortunately there are a couple of specs that haven't necessarily been fully looked after, that are still works in progress, and that's fine. But we'll go play the other stuff that's fun until they do get looked after. Some of us do want to know in advance, and that's the argument behind unveiling the runes now. That's a very long monologue there, guys. Sorry. Anyone have anything on that?
Yeah. The key word, like you said, is yet. Like, just because they don't post something, new Warlock or a new Rogue tanking rune for the 40 bracket, we still have 3 updates after that. They're going to have to do something. Like, they know that the class isn't functionable as it is. It has a lot of issues, and they might have already had, the level 40 bracket rune set in place, but now they're working on the level 50 bracket to kind of shape those specs out to make them a little more viable, a little more fun.
Alrighty. Guys, we might move on from the February 8 discussion, and I think we handled things pretty well there. Let's dive into the reputation changes if we can, because they announced that they are now greatly increasing the rep rewards for your participation in the Ashenvale event now. I believe downing a boss or a mini boss or what have you will now reward 1,000 rep instead of 200. You guys will correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure Ubiquitous.
400 for me yesterday.
Okay, what was the 1,000 fee? Oh, that's the quest turn-in, right?
That's the
quest turn-in.
Yes,
that's the charm.
Okay, so the quest turn-in now gives you 1,000. They've upped everything. You guys will talk about this much better than I ever will, because I've actually had relatively little to do with Ashenvale to this point, despite the amount of time I've put into Season of Discovery. Look, these things aren't unheard of. Blizzard is very much so in the business of making things a little bit easier, a little bit more accessible prior to a new phase coming out. I'm a little bit torn on it, where I kind of do go, it's always, considering this is Season of Vaults, it's a great decision. That's where I applaud it. And it's the same thing where I changed my mind on when I got a bit like, I didn't go too hard, but I got a little bit stuck into the team when they upped the when they changed the waylaid supplies rep system, and they said now you only need friendly rather than honored to get the rune. I was critical of that decision on the show, 3-4 weeks ago, saying, rep grinds are good, why are you making this easier, that gives you something to do, blah blah blah. I will change my mind with a caveat on that, where I've like, now that, as I say, this game has become Season of Vaults, I think it was a good decision. However, if you only have 1 or 2 characters, that's where I think the benefits are a little bit watered down, because it is good to have something to do in an MMO. Rep grinds are good, but yes, you don't want to do that same rep grind 6 times over if you are the kind of player that's had been fortunate enough to have the time to level character after character after character, which I understand is a minority of us. But this one is again something where, so people who have put the time in might be a little bummed out, but it is kind of like I'm less on board with the argument sort of like, if I had to do it then you have to do it. I'm kind of torn on this one, guys. How do you feel? I mean, generally, I think people are pretty positive about this stuff. How do you guys feel about it?
About the Ashenvale event changes?
About giving much more rep, yeah.
Yeah, it is pretty good. I mean, it was almost entirely necessary, and even now, it's still slow as fuck. Like 21 weeks of 1k rep, we will be in the next band by then. We'll be leveling to 50 21 weeks from now, I would guess. If this has been 10 weeks, we've got, what's that? We've got 3 more weeks of this, so we're down to 18 weeks. I don't think next phase is going to last 18 weeks, so we'll be leveling to 50 if you just do this every week for 1k rep. But it's still appreciated, because that's way better than trying to do Warsong Gulch, getting in a pre-made, getting 100 rep every 9 minutes or however quick you're winning. That's just too fucking slow. Oh, sorry, it's a bit more than that with the caps. But yeah, it was. I think it's a fun change to know that people will get exalted with the PvP factions, because that's actually pretty rare in classic. Like, unless you're a full-on PvP degenerate and grind for like days and days and days and days, very rare was it that anyone got all 3 factions to exalted. And if I'm not mistaken, you get a little title for it or whatever, Conqueror or some shit on Horde, if I'm not mistaken. So that'll be fun to see. Like, it's almost like giving us new content without actually making anything new, because so many players have never had the luxury of accessing these rewards and stuff. And I think that's just fun. I think it's if it's still gated behind effort, in that if you're super casual, it's going to take you 21 weeks, and then if you pre-made Warsong Gulch and do this, you'll get it a lot sooner. I think that's perfect for the game and the season as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Shane, how about you?
It's classic Blizzard or any MMO. New phase coming out, easier to get the old stuff as you get ready for what's coming ahead. It's pretty much par for the course.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really have a problem with it.
Too easy, Craig?
I'm honestly kind of on the fence about it. Like, it's good for the most part, especially like for my server. We've won like 2 or 3 Ashenvales since phase 1 started, because the alliance just rolls us every time. But with the rep comes the higher tier weapons and higher tier gear, and if I put in all the work to have those whenever the phases open, like, I would want other people to have to put in the same amount of work. So like, my efforts isn't devalued just because to save time and to get you ready for next phase.
Yeah, and that's the murkier argument there, where I understand where people are coming. Like, I decided to put my time elsewhere, where I could have knuckled down and done this rep grind on 1 or 2 characters and been like, yep, okay, I'm I'm now revered with fucking Warsong or what have you. I've instead elected to spend that time leveling alt after alt after alt. And now someone like me is directly rewarded with like, hey, all those alts you just spend all that time leveling up, here's a far easier path to the rep grind for you. Whereas the people who put the time in before now have that time devalued. I do agree with you, but it is something where I don't know. I'm totally okay with the change. I'm not here smashing the change. I think it's fine. It's good. We're used to it. But not that my heart goes out to, but I do slightly understand the people that cry foul over this.
I did it just the National Val event about 30 minutes ago, is that now that this carrot on a stick is there, you'll go do the first boss of Ashen Vale. Like, I'm already revered. I'll just do the event till I get my drums and then go, oh, the Sentinel Charm. Thanks, boys. Leave raid. Just run back into the inn and wait for the event to end, because it's not like you get any honor for participating in the rest of it. None of it will give me any more rep. I've got my one piece that I need from it, and I'll just wait for it to finish and hand in at the NPC for the week. And that's it.
So,
and I think I saw 5 or 6 other guys dip straight out of the splint raid as soon as we got our charms as well.
So like I was saying, like I think it depends on the people. Like, you're saying you're already revered. On my main, I'm only halfway through friendly because we rarely ever kill a demi-boss. So the only rep I've been getting every time or every week is the turn-in for the charm. I've been doing it, 2 times a day if I can, and it's pretty bad. Like I said, we've won like 2 or 3 since the game launched.
Would you say then that this is actually a good thing to help you because you've been in a faction that's just gets suppressed? I know like the effort's there, but now at least you're going to be able to kind of catch up to people who have probably done half of what you've done and are more in a different situation.
That's what I said. Like, that's why I said I'm on the fence about it. Like, it's good because it'll help me catch up to everybody else, but like this, I rated on retail for like 10 years now, and I didn't like put in a bunch of work and then want somebody else just to have stuff given to them. So like, I'm trying to view it from a standpoint of the people that already have revered and put in that effort. They don't want to just have all their work be devalued. They want everybody to do what they had to do, put in the work, put in the hours, try to get the wins.
The really intriguing thing for me that I've been thinking about for the last week or so is, what is the future for the Ashen Vale event once we move past it? Because obviously one of the reasons that this change has come into effect is to adjust for the fact that most players won't be engaging in this content moving forward. So it's interesting in Ashen Vale, in an event where you have to perform so many kills of mobs or other players in order to trigger the event, and then once the event is triggered, you're being asked to fight, effectively raid bosses that need many, many players to bring down. I'd be really interested to hear Blizzard's design plans for, if you're in the middle of phase 3 and you decide, rogues are really cool. I haven't rolled one yet. I'm going to roll one. And then you fall in love with it and you're like, I want to get his Warsong rep up and running. Oh, the best way to do that is Ashen Vale, but everyone's level 50 and no one's fucking doing this Ashen Vale event anymore. I'd be really intrigued to hear what their plans are to sort of deal with that.
I don't think it'll be available in later phases. Like, I feel like whenever we switch to phase 2, they'll pull all of their efforts into the Stranglethorn Vale event, and the Ashen Vale event just won't be available anymore.
Well, didn't they say that it will go off every 3 hours, even if there's nothing going on? That's the cadence that they've put in.
I'm not. Did they? You might know better. I'm not sure if they said it'll definitely go off every 3 hours. My reading of it, and I only half read it, mate, so I was half asleep. My reading of it was that they've adjusted the timing in terms of minimum and, yeah, they did say minimum and maximum wait times, but I'm not sure if the maximum wait time is also attached to, it's going to go off regardless of whether you've got the kills or not. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll try and find the article now. read it as at a glance as well, and I thought it just meant that like no one could kill anyone, and it will trickle towards the start every 3 hours.
Yeah, but even if you have the event automatically go off on a timer, unless they obviously drastically adjust the mobs and what goes on when the event starts, like you're not going to be able to solo it or do it with barely anyone in the zone.
Oh yeah, well I think it all hinges on the drums and whether they'll still be useful to us going forward, or will there just be a more powerful drum from STV that has a higher percentage that'll completely negate wanting this one anymore. But as long as, and if this drum's going to work for the rest of the game, people are going to want it forever. And that on a tangent, I think it's dumb that you can only get it once every week. I think it should be once every reset window, so you can take it to every raid or every BFD raid. But then that would need rep tweaking some of the rewards they've given out.
So I think it was Craig. Were you saying before that your belief is that they ditch Ashenvale because they'll just connect the same rep grinds to a new event? Like, are you saying you think the STV event will be tied to the Warsong Gulch rep?
Yeah, that's what I think.
Okay.
Because I mean, once we all get out of Ashenvale, yeah, you might still need it, but like you said, how are you going to kill these really strong demi bosses in like a small group or solo? I don't think they'll put any effort towards it anymore, and they'll just take it off the timer in the rotation.
That makes more sense. Like, I think just allowing people to continue the grind, or get from revered to exalted that way, or let people go from fucking nothing to revered if they haven't done it already, does make sense. I've been working on the presumption, and this presumption is based on nothing. I maybe shouldn't jump to conclusions. I've been working on the presumption that it'll just be a different rep grind in STV, but what the fuck do I know?
I have a different outlook on it, mostly just to kind of keep people interested, because people always want their buffs, and Ubiquitous touched on it with drums. So if you keep drums and then maybe STV has a different type of buff or whatever it is they do, but if drums is going to stay to Ashenvale and you keep it on a timer every 3 hours, whatever it is they do, it will force people, especially the sweats, to, they increase it, you can get it, twice a week or once a week, whatever they do, but it will force people to go there to get your buff. And people can then tag in from there to keep getting their rep if they're a little behind. Because I honestly think STV will be attached to Arathi Basin in terms of rep. That's my assumption. That's how I feel based on how they did Ashenvale.
Yeah.
And that they will attach Arathi Basin to Stranglethorn Vale.
I agree with that.
Later on, they'll attach Altrincham Valley to another phase when it's released.
I would agree with that. Hey, Punchy, mate, we've dragged you in. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad.
That's the way, mate. What have we said that made you put your hand up?
I just thought with the whole faction things and people were sort of umming and ahhing about what they might do, a thought that just popped into my head was what they did with AV back in Classic, whereas you started getting Frostwolf rep, and then once you maxed that out, you started getting like town rep. So maybe like a cool idea for them to make people be able to finish their Warsong Gulch rep would be to like you still get Warsong Gulch rep in the Ashenvale event until you're exalted, and then it swaps over to the Arathi Basin.
What do you guys think of that?
So then people, basically anybody that wants their Arathi Basin rep will max out their Warsong Gulch just passively by doing the event.
What do you other guys think of that?
I'm open to anything that makes me not have to grind Warsong Gulch specifically.
It kind of just gets rid of a aspect that they brought in, which is kind of what Craig was touching on if you're behind or whatever. Or we were even talking about like what happens with Ashenvale. Well, do we just have this event that we were all so enticed in doing constantly and just, next phase, throw it in the trash?
Well,
sort of thing.
On that note, like I did one this morning, and me and Josh play on a much smaller. I mean, it's a big server, but not compared to the EU NA fucking super servers. We did an Ashenvale event this morning with I reckon about 42 players because it was 6:15 in the morning or something ridiculous, and we did get it done. It just meant that it's not like how it is now where all 3 bosses die in 6 minutes. We had to go boss to boss to boss to clear the whole thing up, and
you loved it, right?
So yeah, it was fun. We we did do Splint, then Glaive, then we wiped the Alliance at Shredder, and then we did the Zorum, well, we call it Zorum, whatever the hell the base is up here. And then went and did Moonwell. But I reckon if 40 25s are pulling this off, with the next runes and more gear, you'd do it with 15 level 40s in comparison to one raid of 25s. Like, you can get it done, and there will always be that many people chasing either the rep or their drums or whatever, depending on what they do with the drums, of course.
I think it really depends on how much of a power creep they put into the level 40 runes.
You also got to think of the people that are still farming their Warsong Gulch will probably be revered. So they're only going to be there for the first, say Splint, a couple mobs in Splinter, get their token, and then obviously piss off.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing at the moment already, so...
An easy change would be to just make it you don't get your Splint till it's finished, and then it just pops in your bag, or it's in your mailbox.
Yeah, that could be
instead of picking it off the first one. That would be a way to keep people there. And if people are worried about it's going to take 40 minutes just to do one, I don't have that time. It's better when it's 15, 20 on whatever sides win just to get my Splinter. They've had battlegrounds where if you don't have enough people, like in Wintergrass, the weaker side or not as much, and you give them power from Wrath.
Yeah.
Whatever the faction bounce, you get a little buff or whatever to kind of help you out if one side's again stronger than the other to help it move it along, because again, everyone tries to mid-max everything. Everyone does sometimes have more or less time than others, so there are things. It just depends on what they want to do,
or they just make it so in phase 2 you get rep up until Exalted. That's an easy change for them to do.
Boys, let me ask you about STV in general, because I've got maybe not minor, I've got mid-tier reservations over this whole thing. And let me explain why. I'm sure you guys have somewhat, cast your minds in this direction. It's a really interesting concept to choose STV. And I know a lot of people were expecting Arathi. I mean, I've got no dramas on paper with choosing STV, but practically speaking, it creates a whole new sort of challenges, which much of the player base may embrace, and that's totally fine. And please bear in mind, guys, everything I'm about to say only relates to PvP servers. So all you guys that picked a PvE server can cheer. This is your moment for you to say, fucking, I chose right at the character selection screen. We get it. Okay, all you pacifists, maybe check out for the next 15-20 minutes. But for PvP servers, one notable thing with the Ashenvale event, I think I'm on the record saying I think the Ashenvale event, once they made all the requisite changes, was good. I know that's not a universal opinion, but I liked it. I think it was good. My greatest complaint was the graveyards, which I'll really put the boot in on the phase 1 review for that one. I won't say anything now. But in saying that the event was good, the fallout was obviously Ashenvale has a bunch of quests for people to do. It was reasonably difficult to quest in Ashenvale due to the fact that it was an open world bloodbath PvP zone. Now, I guess on a PvE server that would still be the case as well, because they still have the event. I actually don't know what the deal was on a PvE server. I presume it's the same that we dealt with. But anyway, very loud truck is driving by. Sorry about that. There are far, far more quests in STV than there are in Ashenvale. And STV is a much more important cog in your leveling journey than Ashenvale ever would have been or will be or could be. People may forget, or you might be entirely aware of exactly how much experience you can gain by doing all the quests in this zone, being STV. It's fun. You're there for a considerable amount of time. You go there. I know my regular leveling journey has me set foot in STV around 31, 32. I'm there till 35. I go away. I come back at 38 and knock off the rest of it. That's just a thing that I really enjoy. But STV is a bloodbath regardless of having a new PvP event in there. everyone is kind of licking their lips over how fucking wild this is going to be. But I just wonder if we're, not approaching it with the requisite amount of caution as well on the same hand. While it will be fun, and I'm not saying STV was a bad decision. I think it is a wild decision. There's a lot of fun elements there. But the players are forgetting that, like, hey guys, if you're on a PvP server, like I say, even if you're on a PvE server, your leveling experience is about to be very fucking interesting. And I hope you have a high tolerance for pain, because if you don't, there's going to be a lot of crying on the forums about this. How do you guys envision the future of STV being in the SOD leveling experience? Who wants to go first?
I think it's going to be the same as leveling questing in Ashenvale at the moment. You'll be fine for 5 minutes, and then next thing you know, you're corpse camped for the next half an hour, while trying to run back 10 minutes to your body every time.
Anyone else? Let me add this in. I think Renkek, makes a very good point. And as someone, I can't really say I'm a warrior player now when I've literally played every fucking class in the game basically and have devoted equal time to everything in SOD. So I'm not a warrior, I'm not a rogue, I'm not a hunter, I'm just a SOD player at this point. But as someone who has leveled a warrior, this is a really big cause for concern for me, because hypothetically, if the quote-unquote good PvP runes for warrior are locked later behind the leveling experience, like you guys said, what if the really good shit comes at 37, 38, blah, blah, blah. PvP is very rough for warriors right now. A lot of people understand that. If day one goes out there and everyone kind of hits STV at the same time, and I'm just playing a class that at this point you chose wrong if you're a PvP enjoyer at the character selection screen because all the other classes are so much stronger, you're going to have a bad time. You're going to have like a rough experience to the point that you might have to level in dungeons because your class can't perform in PvP because you don't have the runes yet, or the runes don't exist, and you just are fucking not leveling in this zone, sunshine. I'm so sorry to say. It's intriguing is all I'll say. It's going to be really, really interesting how this plays out. Like, I get that dungeon leveling is a thing, but all I'm saying is STV's like usual play in your usual leveling experience is about to be drastically modified. Anyone else on this one?
The fact that
I think you can level somewhere else. To be honest, sorry, I'm just gonna say I know STB is like always known to level, but with the runes and the gear we have, we are never going to be as strong at 25 as we are right now. And even a few levels up, we do not get this type of gear. We do not have this type of power. You could probably go somewhere where you wouldn't if you were to enter enter Stranglethorn Vale. You could go somewhere else and probably be perfectly fine, even though you would want to be, if you were back in Classic, a few levels higher or whatever before you entered there, and still be able to grind out your levels reasonably well with the way the game is built now.
Yeah, with the addition of like Questy and shit, like you can just open your map and go, oh yeah, like we've got Desolus and stuff. You can level completely fine. There's literally players that didn't go through STV the first time around because they just hate the ganking that much before they went and put a PvP event in there. Like, it's entirely possible to level without ever stepping foot in STV. Is it a minor hindrance? Probably, but just do a couple more SM runs or just go grind mobs. I mean, I enjoy that. I'm trying to find a few spots. If it does turn out to just be an absolute shit fest, I've found a few spots where I can just probably grind mobs that people have already done the quest for that spot, so there shouldn't be any traffic. There's alternatives, and I don't know. Do I get the shits if I get ganked 5 times while questing? Absolutely, I'm human, but I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just a part of this game, and especially the rock paper scissors nature of PvP in this.
I'm not saying, sorry, Punchy, I'll throw it to you now. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's something that's probably going to be sneaking up on the players more than they think, and it's just be ready for it, as opposed to it being a bad thing. But I mean, I'll give you this example though, and Punchy, I'll throw it to you. Like with Ashen, there's actually not that many quests in Ashen Vale, but there are, fucking 6, 7, or 8 you probably like to do for the gold or whatnot. But I'm waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning and doing them on all my characters because there is zero fucking chance I'm getting them done at any other time of the day. With the sheer amount of quests in STV, that's a lot of 5 o'clock wake up calls. So I don't know how I'm going to go with that one. Punchy, mate, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, because STV's, like, compared to Ashen Vale, is like 10 levels worth of leveling. And, like, that's major, especially being classic and having all the elite quests, like the final bosses of Nessingwary and even the big ogres towards the end sort of thing. You're still questing there at like level 45, level 44, 45 onwards.
Yeah, Southern STV is like way higher level than what most players remember it to be.
Yeah, so like people are going to realize that they're going to get hard stuck once Nessingwary is sort of, that northern camp is sort of done. They're going to be sort of, obviously people are killing stuff that are level 30 now, but like they're in a group of 10, 20 people to do it effectively. But there's also the fact that Horde have got 2 flight spawns again in STV compared to Alliance's 1, which is just Booty Bay. Or we're running from Duskwood or whatever it is, Darkshire.
Boys, I'll take this opportunity to move on to what I guess I could call the main topic of this conversation. If we're done, if anyone has anything else to say on STV, please do let me know. But otherwise, I'll move on to just PvP in general, and I want to get it in on a larger conversation about how we feel about PvP and SOD so far and how we feel about it moving forward, which is so hard to talk about because we don't know the runes that are coming or how anything's going to look. But just, going off a general, like, principle-based conversation off of what we've seen so far. Look, my Discord knows, and anyone who follows me on Twitter knows, it's probably fair to say that I've been bitching and whinging, quite frankly, about, a couple of niche PvP points. I'm not alone in the points that I've raised. They've certainly been reasonably popular. But we've been readdressing the way in which we think about SOD PvP and sort of having a bit of a laugh about things that we said pre-launch versus how we feel about now. And Manny kicked off a very, very funny, string of comments in the Discord yesterday when he talked about, he'd like to retract comments that he made previously on the show about PvP balance not being a big deal for SOD because we have to be prepared and willing. I'm paraphrasing now for Manny, but basically he was saying that before the game came out, he was on the show saying, who gives a fuck about PvP balance? We have to fix PvE for these poor classes that have waited years for a helping hand. Your Boomkins, your Ret Paladins, all these classes that have just been afterthoughts in vanilla WoW. The whole point of Season of Discovery is to make the game fun for them too. And like the Blizzard slide suggested at BlizzCon, it's not about bringing warriors down, but about bringing everyone up and making everyone OP and really having everyone feel powerful in the game. I certainly feel that they've achieved that. The Shadow Priests are crying out, or the Boomkins in Raid, or the Enhancer Elemental Shaman in Raid are crying out. But you know what I mean. For the most part, everyone's reasonably happy. However, when it comes to PvP, there's, this is just game design. I'm not saying anything that's new here. Obviously, when you make the drastic changes in PvE with these new abilities and runes that we've seen, they will have a drastic waterfall cascading effect in PvP. Now, as I'm saying, this is a very long-winded point, guys, but bear with me. As I'm saying, I was also previously on the show saying I'm more than prepared to have a bunch of PvP wackiness and a kind of shoulder shrugging through SOD going, oh, well, if they are, particularly strong or whatnot, that's okay as long as we let people have fun and the PvE viability returns. And I'm also now laughing at that, going, well, look, if I may clarify my comments as previously heard on Countdown to Classic, and I said this in the road call as well, I think, or at least at some point recently, where I've been like, I am still saying that I am more than prepared as a player to grit my teeth and bear this proverbial wackiness, as I say in air quotes. I'm okay with some classes being pretty fucking strong in PvP and some you have to be a bit wary of. My point has been that there are elements of absurdity. There's a threshold that you can cross where, we've tuned a class to be, more viable in PvE to the point that we've maybe unintentionally turns them into gods in PvP. And the pushback on the Discord was, Josh, this sounds like a skill issue, but I think we got enough pushback to that point saying, no, there's fundamental design flaws here that go beyond skill or tactics. And we're obviously talking about rather niche things like the hunter pet, is the first example that I'll bring up. And then people also really like to bring up Star Surge and whatnot, and we'll dive into all of this. But I'm not here. I don't want people to get the wrong impression that I'm throwing my hands up and saying, fuck this game, it's broken, PvP's fucked, everything's, the worst, I hate you all. Not saying that. But I definitely do feel that the 3 or 4 classes I've devoted my time to in the game so far, being Enhanced Shaman, Warrior, Rogue, are, definitely classes that are kind of getting their asses kicked in PvP by others that are really, on the up and up. What do I mean by that? Let's just start with the easy one, the hunter pet, and I'll get you guys weighing in on the whole thing as well. Before we get to hunter pets, let me start with this very generic question. Do you agree or disagree that while you can lift a class up in PvE, there is a threshold of silliness that you can cross in PvP?
Yeah, I think, should it be their priority? I don't really think so, but if something is just genuinely ludicrous in PvP, then it probably does need looking at. If there's something in the game at the moment that is that, all the hunters will say no. Probably a lot of other players will say yes. But I think you can't hide behind, we just wanted them to do more damage in BFD, so you have to put up with getting 3 shot by lightning breath for the rest of the phase.
100%.
It's a bit of a cop out,
100%.
So.
And I got into it on Twitter the other day with someone making that point. I'll be fair to them, and we'll dive into their points a bit more. But you've paraphrased it very well, Ubiquitous, and I feel that you do get a lot of players going you can't nerf hunter pets because I need to do more damage in the raid. Fuck you. And I'm like, oh mate, there's a lot more to it than that. And also it's not like damage can't be redistributed. But Craig, Shane, we'll throw it to you guys. My very generic question of, do you agree or disagree that there is a line you can cross with silliness in PvP?
Yes. The old school answer is look at Shadow Priest. I'm sure anyone who played Classic of, meme spec for Raid, but don't want to come across a good one or one in the world because they are really tough to kill.
I somewhat take you to task on that one there, Chain. I hear what you're saying, but I disagree with you in that my whole thing about comparing SOD PvP to vanilla PvP as we know it is, whilst vanilla PvP is built on a bedrock of paper, scissors, rock, and there are definitely classes, there's going to be 2 or 3 classes that will probably, have every right to beat you in any one-on-one matchup. You think of the disparity in a warrior mage matchup. You think of, the disparity in I don't know, a fucking rogue priest matchup. I don't know, whatever. You guys know what I'm talking about. But what I'm trying to say is, whenever I play Vanilla WoW, no matter what class I'm playing, despite the paper, scissors, rock outlook of it, I never came across a class that I was like, ooh, I am not fighting that class. I am genuinely afraid of you, and I genuinely put my chances of beating you at 0. I never looked at a Shadow Priest in vanilla and was like, oh, fuck, I'm shaking in my boots. I shouldn't touch that guy. Shadow Priest, ridiculously strong in vanilla PvP. Completely agree with you. You know, arguably, I guess, number one. Most people generally say Shadow Priest number one-on-one PvP in vanilla WoW. I would run up to and fight every fucking Shadow Priest I ever saw in the game, because it's still going to, for some part, come down to a question of skill. In SOD, I am not having that same feeling where I'm like, I don't feel like I'll challenge anyone, because I feel like skill is somewhat being removed from the equation, and now a hunter or a meta warlock, depending on what class is fighting it, basically presses 1, 2, 3 buttons and it is game over, to the point that certain classes will see a hunter, or see, you know, I think all classes will see a hunter and be like, do not engage. You will be doing a corpse run very soon if you do. Did you know what I'm saying there, Chain?
No, yeah, no, I get you in terms of like, yeah, like the other thing I'll say, at least like in terms like with the hunter there, is when the pet can literally kill you by itself and not the hunter. What kind of gameplay are we having?
Yeah.
Where they can just sit back and be like, go ahead, pet.
Yeah, and that's why I raised this one for. And it really, I'm not talking about like all of PvP is broken. It's not. But there are these 1 or 2, maybe someone will have a third, I don't know. These 1 or 2 obvious examples of what I tag as absurd that needs to get some attention from the classic team, or over time people will start to fucking riot. The hunter pet. I mean, please, guys, I'd love to hear, you know, your thoughts on it and your experiences, but I wouldn't have thought it was a controversial opinion to say a hunter pet shouldn't be able to solo, you know, classes in World of War. Like, your pet is a pet. It's not, you know, there's the meme video out there of the new class of Season of Discovery being the Wind Serpent. You know, hunter pet shouldn't be able to solo a player. It is absurd that a hunter can throw on Eyes of the Beast, walk away, be a couple of football fields away, and just control their pet to the point that it's ridiculous. I was on my near best in slot, and again, people will laugh and joke about skill issue, but fuck. On my near best in slot warrior, just 3 days ago, hunter Eyes of the Beast, his cat. And the cat had another mob on it, where in the Ashen Vale, it's got a level 23 Furbolg on it. The whole fight, it's taking, you know, probably not you know, it's a small amount of damage, but like, you know, it's getting damage from another source. And it came down to the last swing. I'm this, and again, people go, well, that's a fucking warrior in PvP. But like, it should never be that close. In male armor, like, I'm heroic striking as often as I can, or I'm fucking rending. I'm doing all the tricks in the fucking warrior, you know, playbook. You know, to be fair, I didn't fucking fear it, but like I just stood there and went, oh well, you know, I should be able to just melee this fucking pet down. Nope, he almost killed me. Like one last swing and he would have done it. And I'm not the only one. Everyone is saying they're being soloed by hunter pets. Generally, it's Wind Serpents. And we all know what the Wind Serpents do. They kill you in about 6 seconds. Yes, there are plays out of it, but generally their power is fucking out of control. And like I said, I don't think it's a controversial thing to say that shouldn't be. The hunters, some, are suffering from an issue that I really hate this when I see it in gaming, and I've criticized content creators for being like this in the past. There's, you know, any fans of Arrested Development will get a laugh out of this, but I call them the never nerfs. You know, there's a class of player out there called the never nerfs, and they will refuse to accept a nerf to their class under any circumstances. Even if you explain to them that this is for the, and let's say you disagree that the hunter pet nerf is for the good of the game, but let's take you know, just an overall argument here of, if you present some players with a nerf and say, hey guys, look, we know you're enjoying this class, but if we don't nerf this ability, it is bad for the game. It is bad for the overall health for the game. There is a portion of the player base that'll be like, no, I don't care. I don't give a fuck if it's bad for the game. Don't never nerf abilities. No, nerfs are always bad. Fuck you. You don't know how to design games. Never nerf. Never. Like, you're fucking idiots. If you think never nerf is a thing, like, and like I say, if you're clearly and logically explained, look, we've gone too far with this ability. It's really bad for the game right now. We need to rebalance. And they're like, no. Then I don't know what to fucking tell you. But some of the hunters are saying that. No, don't touch our fucking pets. We're the only sole DPS class in this game. We have to fucking own in DPS, all that shit. And I'm like, baby. No one is saying you shouldn't do top tier DPS. Nobody is saying that your pets shouldn't have great utility and worth. But we're talking about a redistribution of the wealth here, that you can still be powerful, but can we not agree that your pets shouldn't be running around in Eyes of the Beast soloing people? No! Fuck you! Like, just shut the fuck up. You kind of lose... Now, guys, you can tell me to shut up now if you disagree, but that's my take on it. I'd love to hear from you guys on this one.
So I've actually got to go. My wife just got home, but I was arguing with that guy yesterday on Twitter that commented on your post, and hunters are fucking ridiculous. Like, they need to be beat with a Nerf bat until they can't stand up. I was going through Red Ridge Mountains this morning, and I seen a hunter pet. It was a wyvern. I'd never seen anybody have a wyvern before. I looked around, couldn't find the hunter anywhere. I'm on my warrior that's mostly bis, like 1400 HP. By the time the wyvern made it to me, he stacked me completely out. The hunter didn't do anything. It was all the pet. Like, it's a fucking joke. PvP is not fun when half the time I run through Ashenvale and I see a feral druid or I see a hunter and I just have to pop a Yui and go back to where I came from. Like, I just know it's going to be a waste of my time.
And that's what I'm saying. You want to avoid waste of time classes, and this is not about skill issues. I'm talking about the average player driving both classes. If I am an average PvP player and I come across an average player on the other side, but they're driving a hunter, I agree, Craig, I shouldn't have to do a U-turn when two average players meet, because there's a 0% chance that one beats the other.
100%. Like, there's no skill involved whatsoever. If you play a hunter class right now and you have the pet at level 25, you win. There's no way around it. Unless we just outnumber you like 5-1. But even then, I've seen hunters still come out on top.
Yeah, and like I mean, Gigantor, you're using like sort of similar to what Shane brought up with the Spreest argument. Like, you're saying, people did the same thing with rogues. They would shit their pants and walk away. I fucking never did that. The vanilla rogue, I love fighting vanilla rogues. I see someone's just popped in stealth to come and gank me. Fucking bring it. I was never afraid. And this isn't like a stupid bravado thing on my behalf. Vanilla rogues were very strong in PvP and vanilla WoW, but they were not something to be like unbelievably fearful of. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've had the same feeling as you, where like I've played Rogue in Classic, which is one of the stronger classes historically speaking, and if like I'm not a full PvP sweaty, I'm not popping out like frost reflector trinkets and shit like that, but in the same boat, I feel like I'd just you'd pick a mage and lo and behold, it's fucking Zico with a mask on and he absolutely destroys you, but then the next mage is dog shit. In this, there's some classes where I just go, fuck that, the graveyard's too far away to even take this risk, because I win 1 out of 10. That's predominantly paladins. They just avenge a shield and melee me for 2/3 of my HP immediately. But even on the hunter debate, I think I can only speak from my experience, and their pet, to put it in numbers and words, literally has greater burst DPS over 5 seconds than me spamming backstab as a backstab rogue. It is doing more damage. I can only beat a hunter using Thistle Tea, so I can keep fucking backstabbing. And then it's literally a 6-second PvP fight every fucking time. It's either 5 lightning breaths kill me because I've popped evasion, the hunter's doing nothing, and it is a race between me and their pet as to whether I can kill the hunter first. And it's just who dodges more. I don't think a pet should be able to keep up with a rogue pressing fucking backstab, spect into backstab, runed for backstab, with best in slot backstab weapons. That is ridiculous. That is absolutely nuts fucking damage. And sure, it's only an 8-second burst window, but that's everyone's fucking complaint about Rogue, is that you can ambush, backstab, it's too much burst. Now you've got some prick doing it with a ranged pet from 20 yards. That, mind you, they can see through stealth, which is another whole thing that I just whinge about all the time.
On that, did you... I'd love to just grab you on it's not even a tangent, but just on the point that I made. Sorry, 2 points real quick. Ubiquitous, flowing on from that, we can also say, like, in the unlikely event that Blizzard does not address this issue, we're staring down the barrel of Bestial Wrath coming in the next phase. Can you fucking imagine what is coming?
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty absurd with how things are at the moment. I don't refresh my memory, like literally just completely unCCable, right? With Bestial Wrath, like not even stunnable.
I believe so.
Yeah, that's how I remember it anyway. I don't know what anyone's going to be able to do to it, to be honest. Like at the moment, my whole plan would be, like, I'm thinking of blinding the pet, but that's going to go out the window. Like you won't be able to do that. I'm guessing it'll just be a case of sprint, vanish, and wait for it to end and then go fight them again, which is just a horrible strategy to have to resort to.
Absolutely. I'll say one more thing, and just before I say this, let me say, guys, as always, I see a lot of you in the crowd there. Guys, if you do want to be involved in the conversation, please don't be shy. If you've ever wanted to be on the show, just put your hand up. I'd love to get you in here and meet new people and have you say. And also just want to send a special shout out. Go, mate. I've seen you in the crowd the last couple of times on YouTube over there, mate. I don't want to put you on the spot, but you're more than welcome to join. I felt so bad that, obviously over on the podcast we did the other day, I talked way too much, and I feel like I didn't get to hang with you very much. I would have loved to have the opportunity. You're more than welcome to join, Go, if you'd like to, but I don't want to force you as well. You fucking tell me to fuck off if you like. But Ubiquitous, on that point, mate, the thing I raised with the never nerfs, have you encountered this kind of player, and what's your thoughts on the people who are like, my class should never be touched because that's just the way it is?
I'd like to say, or I see myself as someone like, if Rogue was genuinely broken in some capacity, I would be able to say that it is. There's some players out there that are just like, no, I've got the power, and they just refuse to admit that potentially they have an unfair advantage in some way, shape, or form. It would be like warriors in vanilla not just admitting that they're like absurdly strong because weapon damage and rage generation is unscaled, which was just a vanilla thing. Well, it's not a bad thing that someone's the best, but rogues and warriors, well, that's actually a better example. Rogues and warriors being like 40% better than everyone else in vanilla isn't good, and I'm saying that as a rogue. It's not fucking right. So like, I don't know where people can look at it and go, no, that's how a game should be. 2 specs should be 50% better than the other 9 that were viable or whatever. Like, it's just irrational. And to be honest, if you catch me I haven't had a coffee and maybe I'm a bit hangry, you can get a fucking bite out of me if you're being that irrational about these things, to be honest.
I'll continue to try fishing for it. One day we'll get unhinged Ubiquitous. It'll be great. Shane, what are your thoughts? And I'm not like trying to get a certain response out of you guys, but I'm more interested to hear what you think about, the years that we've spent around other players who do what we do in this genre of game. How do you feel about the never nerfers who, like Ubiquitous is saying, I do believe, there's a proportion of the player base that would be very disingenuous about how their class performs and that they should always be number one, and if it's broken, then so be it, all you other nerds can deal with it. How do you feel about that kind of stuff?
I think no one ever wants to be nerfed. Everyone always wants to be powerful, regardless of a class. If it's the best tank, the best DPS, the strongest healer, no one wants to see those nerfs when they come in. But there's definitely those people who's just like, they're the diehards, and it's just like, you touch what they love and what they do, they're gonna just come unhinged about it and feel like they're being personally attacked.
Yeah, I mean, I understand from a game designer's perspective that you never want to nerf. You want to tune so well that you are only ever building up rather than sort of pushing down. I get that, and I understand that players in general don't welcome or enjoy the feeling of nerfs. I'm not disputing that in any way, but I'll leave on this point. I've always said, like, you know, just before you write your angry Reddit posts and everything, like, just ask yourself if the nerf is actually for the greater good of the game. And if you search inside your heart of hearts and realize, yeah, I probably am hitting a little too hard there, it's not very fair, then think twice before posting.
I think we brought it up when we were talking about like hunter pets just being OP in raids before they got that nerf. It's like just make it, if it does this much damage, make it a glass cannon. Make it that a mage can kill a fucking pet with a pyroblast and a fireball, and a warrior can kill it with, you know, a few autos and a few abilities. Like, make it that I was ganking with a rogue mate literally while we're doing this at the moment, and we had a hunter shadow meld and send their pet at us. It took both of us like 12 seconds to kill one fucking lightning noodle. Like, we're two rogues, and whichever one it was attacking, the other rogue got to backstab it, and it almost killed one of us, with two of us just trying to fucking kill it. And the hunter was just shadow melded heaps far away, and we ended up getting the hunter. We found them, but like, it shouldn't take two rogues 12 seconds to kill a fucking pet if they want it to do that much damage.
Yeah,
just make it a full-blown glass cannon that dies in 4 seconds of actual focused attention, and then you can tell them that that's just pet management to make sure it doesn't die. That's class fantasy. Don't let your puppy die, you know.
I've got reasonably few complaints on the PvP front, even though we are here having this larger conversation about, you know, how far do you allow changes to go, considering the effect that they will have on PvP, and SoD PvP is still kind of finding its feet in terms of what it wants to be or what it's going to be. Like you said, Ubiquitous, I feel like, I mean, people might say, oh, actually, I don't know what version of WoW this was, but you might say vanilla was the version. I would somewhat disagree, but like, I'm not necessarily in love with I don't know, vanilla PvP was kind of like this. Like, I'm not in love with the 6-second fight, which does seem to happen a bit. Do you guys think that burstiness in PvP is in a good spot, or fights are over pretty quickly?
I'll be quiet for the next 5 minutes. They're testing the fire alarm.
Oh, you're right, mate. You're right. That's okay. Shane, what's been your feel on it?
Usually the fights are fairly quick, unless, like I said, I'm a shaman, I'm a healer. I've had pets run me down in Ghost Wolf, and I had a head start and run me down after a minute and just kill me without the hunter touching me.
Right.
Like, and I can't do anything. There's nothing to stop. If I even just try to drop a earth ward or whatever just to slow it down or anything, I can't get my Ghost Wolf back up, and it's just gonna run me down. So, like, there should be some, like, we don't want it to get out of hand and kind of almost go to retail PvP where everyone's got some sort of defense and you're in a 10-minute fight or whatever. Right. So it's tough to find that happy medium. Like, you're probably going to have where it's just like, hey, this warrior or this rogue, you're clothy. Well, if, you know, you don't have, you know, maybe your cooldowns or whatever, you're probably going to die fast. Yeah. That's kind of always been kind of the classic, and maybe there might be some runes coming down that help that potentially if they want to look down that road. But, you know, there's also the fact of, like, we're not all the way down our talents. We're 25. We should, for the most part, kind of be squishy.
And don't get me wrong,
or who catches who off guard.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not here saying I want long PvP fights. Like, I think of the vanilla length of fight is perfect. I'm not sure if that's what SoD is. It feels a little quicker, but I'm not ready to, like, definitively say, because I feel like I haven't got enough of a dip sample.
Yeah, and, you know, we're 25 and we're 2 months in or whatever it is, and more is going to come. More spells are coming, more talents. This might be a completely different conversation 2 months down the road. when we're doing a recap for phase 2 and getting ready for phase 3.
Shane, have you played Warlock or spent much time fighting Warlock so far?
Yes.
Okay. So
I don't play the Warlock, but I've definitely fought them.
Okay, let me ask you, because like I said, even though I'm spending a lot of time discussing this topic, I don't want people to take away the impression that I'm saying SOD PvP is beyond repair. I'm literally just picking up like 2 examples here that I'm saying like this is Season of Wackiness, but there's wacky and then there's absurd, and I think there's like 2 things that are absurd, and this is the second thing. So please just remember that, guys. I'm discussing very like niche points here and just a couple of things, not like the whole fucking system's broken. But Meta Warlocks, please do feel free to tell me if you disagree with this. And I know many people would, because they really enjoy, like I say, the paper, scissors, rock feel of vanilla PvP, and would say that this falls within that flavor. But one of my great complaints about Meta Warlock PvP has been 2 things where I truly feel like they are immune to melee classes. Like literally, if you're a melee class, do not engage with the Meta Warlock. You cannot beat them. The second part of that, though, is also that the ease of the Meta Warlock, like Ubiquitous alluded to before, saying, I'm very, very uncomfortable with your class being so strong in PvP, where you have to take no mind of situational awareness. Doesn't matter who you're fighting, where you are, what you're doing. You press button 1, then you press button 2, then you press button 3, and you stop, and you've won that fight. When my example has been like, if a 6-year-old can press their 3 buttons and beat a relatively veteran WoW PvP player, I think that's an issue. And I've gotten that impression from the Meta Warlock. Do you think that is me taking it too far with that take or not?
No, I think you're hitting the mark, because it's the same thing. Like, it's not as egregious with the Hunter Pet, where it's like I said, Hunter shadow melds, Pet go in there and he does all the work and he doesn't have to do anything. With the lock, it's kind of put your couple dots and it's either you're kiting away because it's the melee trying to chase you, and even if they get on you, you're still healing from that dot, or it's a range and you're just slowly chasing and running after them and just keep applying your dots while being very tanky. It's a tank that doesn't technically have to engage you.
On a tangent, someone's linked there is a blue post.
Yeah, I'm reading it now.
They waited for you to have your rant, and they're like, you know what, Josh? Fuck yeah, here you go.
Yeah, so it looks like, when was this posted? I can't find a timestamp on it.
I think it just came through.
Hang on. So they've nerfed Hunters as we're discussing it. This
Again
was sent out, let's see, Blue Tracker. Thanks for posting that, by the way, guys. This was sent out 8 minutes ago by Clivax, and it talks about nerfs to Hunter and Priest, and it's very funny because after this Warlock Metamorphosis example, I said to you guys, I've got 2 examples of absurdity, and I think I've got 3, but I wanted your opinion on the third. And Priest healing in PvP was the third example I was going to raise.
I was ready to go in on Priest as well.
Yeah, I've got a story about Priest that I wanted to tell. We'll go there anyway, even in light of these nerfs. But breaking news, as we're talking, Hunter pets have been nerfed. We have to discuss this, even though we would just moved on to Meta Warlocks. Put a pin in Meta Warlock. We'll come back to that. Let me just read these patch notes. Hunter, Chimera shot weapon damage increased to 100%. It was 85%. Explosive shot base damage increased by 25% before attack power modifiers. So they are lifting you up in some regards, like we talked about, redistribution of wealth, if you will. Mana cost of Chimera shot, explosive shot, carve, kill, command, and flanking strike reduced by 50%. Happy days. However, here's your nerfs. Beast Mastery Rune. Bonus health and damage provided to Hunter pets reduced to 20%. It was 30%, so you've lost 10% there. Beast Mastery rune bonus focus regeneration provided to hunter pets reduced to 50%. It was 80%. Developers notes, we remain concerned that hunter pets are still too powerful. That's a fucking, euphemism if I've ever heard one. And believe that the best way forward is to rein in the Beast Mastery rune while compensating via the hunter's main spells. So, I mean, like we said, the developers are all over this. I could have predicted this was coming at some point, maybe just not, while we're talking about it on the call. That's sooner than I thought it would come, but fantastic. I guess I'd have to get your reactions in the moment. Ubiquitous, first reading of this, and then we'll go to Chain. I mean, that's brilliant. We have to do the high fives here. Let me think what you think of the changes, and then we'll discuss about whether they've gone far enough or too far.
I think it's right. As Gigantor said in the chat, it was just about how fast they got their focus back, like casting Lightning Breath like 4 times in 6 seconds or something. That was over the top, and it needed amending, and I mean, hunters might not like it. I personally hope that hunters do just as much damage, but maybe with their actual fucking weapons, just not with their pet. And it seems like they're going that route with buffing Chimera Shot and Explosive Shot and reducing the mana cost and all that shit. That's more the avenue that I would like to think that hunter players want. Like, they want to actually be the damage dealer more than their pet, as long as it's equally as powerful. I don't see how they'd complain. Unless they're just in that crowd of, it's easier if my pet does it. I want to do the same damage, but the pet does everything. I'm sure there'll be a few of them, but yeah, I think they're the right changes, and it's always good to give a little while you take a lot. Like, they didn't just nerf pets and not give them any alternative. They did give them a little buff there and a few things.
Can I just say, I hate the Classic team so much, and I say that with the firmest tongue in cheek. What I mean by that is, this happens every fucking time where, like, his crew def in chat going like, and I know he's saying this jokingly, but like, Josh obviously has advanced knowledge that this nerf was coming. How else do you explain the perfectly timed release of this nerf after his rant? And I'm just like, the fucking Classic team is killing me, where they keep giving fodder for people saying like, oh, they're reacting to Josh, or Josh is in the know. And I'm like, I am a fucking peasant who has nothing to do with this game, with no insider knowledge. No. But like, what I will say is, like, this nerf came at 10 past 6 on a on a Wednesday night in LA, in Irvine. What the fuck are they doing in the office? They should be home. What are you guys doing? Shane, let me throw it to you for your thoughts on, did they get this? We'll do the Goldilocks test with this nerf and the buffs, I guess, to other abilities. Too much, too little, or just right?
Well, one, it's 4:30 for LA for them.
I fucked it up. Sorry, my bad.
They'd still be working. I'm West Coast too, so when you said that, I'm like, no, you're kind of wrong.
Sorry, that's my bad, because it's got a midnight stamp on the blue post, and I thought that was East Coast, but obviously not.
Yeah, no, it's it's only
4:30. That'd be EU. That's EU time. Yeah, for some reason it's showing up. Anyway, sorry, keep going, mate.
I think it's because the post is EU. Like, when you click on that,
that'd be
it. So that's why it's giving that time. But again, it's needed. Buff the hunter, but not make the pet technically the main character. The hunter's the main character, not the pet. So I'm fine with reduce what the hunters or what the pet's doing, but then give something back so they're not feeling like they're just losing everything, because some of them are probably going to go out of their minds.
Yeah, no, it's weird. I clicked on the NA link, and for some reason it still shows up with the EU time. But anyway, it doesn't matter. All right. Guess who we've pulled in here? Go. Mate, thank you so much. You've been such a great participant over there in YouTube chat the last few recordings. And like I say, I felt so bad that you and I didn't really get to chat on the podcast recording the other day, and people were tongue in cheek saying, fucking, is Go even on this show? He's barely saying anything, because dickheads like me and Scotty, who I now say that affectionately because I love Scotty after our meeting the other day, were talking the whole time and wouldn't let you get a fucking word in. How are you, mate?
I'm fantastic. Yeah, I tend to do that on Warcraft Reloaded. I kind of just sit there. If I have something really important that I need to get off my chest, I'll interject every now and then. But for the most part, I just like hearing people's rants uninterrupted as much as possible. And I say that because I think Bob might be in the chat, and he's the king of interrupting people mid-thought. So I like to try to let people get their points across.
Well, it's about
means
you.
I don't get to talk.
As I interrupt you, it's about you now here, mate. So fuck me, fuck Bob, fuck everyone else. We want to hear about what you've got to say. So let me ask you, with this breaking news on the Hunter thing, like what's your reaction?
As a balanced druid, I usually hibernate the pet, so the hunter's damage going up is a nerf for me personally. Like, it makes me a little bit scared because Chimera Shot does pretty decent damage, and that's what I usually see is their top damage against me is Chimera Shot. And seeing that getting buffed, I'm a little bit worried.
Fair enough. No, that's you. You had all the tools in the kit to take care of hunters, and now this is a different story for you. Let's say from outside of the druid's perspective, you know, I've had a lot to say about hunter pets over the last half an hour, and the boys have chimed in as well. Were you of the belief that for the greater good this had to happen?
I don't think so.
Really? You thought it was all good?
Yeah. I don't like it personally, but I understand that a hunter's pets is a big part of their class, and having their pet fall over in like a battleground or something, it would feel bad for the hunter. And then they have to sit there and cast their res. Their pet hates them. They have to feed them their food buff. I really don't know that much about hunters.
But they're out there soloing. The poor people go. Think of the people.
So this is perfect for the classic vibe and what the classic team is trying to achieve. They want you to play with other people and not just go out there on your own. So yeah, if you're having problems with hunters, go into your general chat, go into your /3, your local defense, and ask for people to join up with you and take care of this problem, which is the hunter.
I think my issue with that is you'd be spamming general chat every time you pass a hunter, which is not an unpopular class.
You'd need a macro every couple steps and, found another hunter. Need help.
Absolutely. Mates, look, while we're discussing PvP, I'm so glad we've got a druid here, Go, because like I said, I did want to discuss the priest healing, and we'll get to that soon. That was part of this blue post. Sorry about the garbage truck outside my house. I'll turn my mic down in a second. But Star Surge, Druids, we've got to talk about it. Go, I'll let you lead off. Do you feel that Star Surge, again, the Goldilocks test, way too stupidly powerful, not powerful enough, or just right in PvP?
I will yield a bit and say they might have buffed it a little too much, but it's not completely overpowered like I think a lot of people complain about, especially against priests. But now priests are nerfed, so big win there. The priest healing going down, because that's the only class that I feel like I didn't really have an absolute chance at all to be able to 1v1. But Star Surge, it's hard to cast in PvP as any caster right now. The pushback is pretty insane. If I'm trying to cast a Wrath to do damage, it's not gonna. It's gonna take 5-6 seconds. It could get kicked while it's getting pushed back from a rogue or something. So Star Surge is really our one damage ability. We want to have Wild Growth instead of Sunfire for the most part, so that we have an instant cast heal that's going to do some burst healing. So then we've got Moonfire, Star Surge, and then Wrath and Starfire. So we've got to be able to do damage somewhere.
I do agree with that. I think so on my level, my piss ants druid, level 13 druid that I'm still sort of slightly chipping away at. I haven't really decided whether I even want a druid or not. I got Star Surge yesterday, right? I just paid the $1 gold for a summon to go and get it because I've got to try this thing that everyone's fucking talking about. I said to the Discord, the most shocking thing for me about Star Surge wasn't the damage, wasn't the instant part of it or the range that everyone talks about. Don't get me wrong, that all factors in. the greatest surprise to me was that for all intents and purposes, this spell is free. It is fucking free. It costs 2 mana at level 13. I think the guy said it turns into full of 4 mana at level 25. That's the part that truly leaves me scratching my head, going, what? Like, I know all the runes are very cheap, but like, there's cheap and there's like free, and it's shocking to me. How do you feel about it, Go?
4 mana is really cheap. I agree.
Hot take.
And it starts off 1 to 7, I think, or 1 to 6. It actually is 0 mana. And then it gets to 1 mana, 2, 3, up to 4.
Oh wow!
But it really helps in PvE that it doesn't have a mana cost really. It has just enough mana to interrupt your in combat casting, like mana regen. So I guess that they might have had the thought of, let's just make it free, and then they were like, well, let's give it a little bit so that you can't regen mana infinitely, and. So 4 mana, I like it.
Fair enough. You other guys, Shane, Ubiquitous, did you have great gripes about Star Surge? Like, so Manny, I'm pretty sure it was Manny raised some great points about it the other day in the Discord. He's very unhappy with it. He thinks it's a bit of a win button. I do have issues with it, not as much as I did with Hunter Pets and Meta Warlocks. How do you feel about Star Surge, guys?
Falls into that rock, paper, scissors category. I think I've had just about 0 experience with it because I'm usually getting the jump on a druid and they seem to die easily enough that I never even know what spec they are. So,
I like it.
Shane, how about you?
Kind of like yourself. I only just recently got it, but and was quite surprised. I had no idea it was such slow mana. I usually use it actually in my raid runs just to sit there in between when the priest is just healing the tank, just to be kind of like a side 9th sort of kind of DPS. And then just throw out a wild growth and literally just sit there, spam Wrath with a little bit of Star Surge and pretty much not waste any mana. And then just AoE heal when I need it and not use any of my other abilities with healing because it's not really needed. So it's an interesting, because it's what's being used for speed runs.
Right.
Is you've got the priest, he just kind of sits there, bubbles, keeps kind of the tank up for the most part. And if there's any AoE damage, it's just wild growth and then continue to just Wrath and Star Surge for boss fights.
I want to just finish what we were talking about with Meta Warlocks, and then we'll come back to Hunters. Fred, I see you in chat. You might be unable to talk, mate. Just let me know, because I'd love if you could to verbalize some of this stuff that you're putting out there in text chat. But if you're at work and can't talk, I totally understand. Just let me know. Just to finish up, Shane, on very good. Thanks, Fred. Just to finish up, Shane, on what we were saying on Meta Warlocks. I was throwing it out there that it feels weird to me having this Meta Warlock basically be immune to melee classes. And we were talking about how the skill level, and it feels like a 6-year-old could beat melee classes on a Meta Warlock at the moment. I might ask you other guys to chime in, Ubiquitous and Go, whether or not you have strong feelings on this. Again, are we throwing Meta Warlock under this absurd bus where we're tagging it as, okay, there's fun and wacky, and then there's ridiculous, and we place the Meta Warlock in the ridiculous category? Or do you disagree and feel it's not there yet?
I feel like they're kind of just they're in the boat, at least for a rogue, as what trying to kill a tank has always felt like. But the only thing is that they still seem to do it a lot faster. Like if I ran into a prot pally or a prot warrior, I probably will lose to them eventually with the toolkit that a rogue has at the moment. But like a meta warlock I'm getting the go on them and I lose in like 12 seconds.
Yeah, but my issue with the encounter is more so like I have less of an issue with losing, but the manner of losing in this regard, where I was wailing on a Meta Warlock on my rogue the other day for 10 seconds, right? It's a 10-second fight, And at the end of the fight, how much health do you think the Warlock had?
Full.
You're 100%. You're
full.
100% right.
Yeah.
Not pretty much full. He ended the fight at 100%.
Yeah, I think like I'm in the same vein where like I expect to just lose to most tanks if they're even half decent, because I'm only half decent. But they just do it too quick, too easily, and like I'm never even remotely close to killing them. Like I probably just would never engage one of them. Whereas if you see a tanky warrior, you're like, maybe I can kite this fella around for 5 minutes and we'll get him down, and that's kind of fun, at least for me. But yeah, with demo or meta locks, it is just like you're losing 100 to 0 in 12 seconds against the tank. That does feel a bit bad.
Go. Do you have any strong thoughts one way or the other on the meta Warlock's performance in PvP?
I feel like I have a better chance against the meta lock than the non-meta lock that is running Haunt.
Well, you're a
Haunt does
caster.
Yeah. So as a caster, it can be as tanky as it wants to be, and I think I still have a chance against the meta.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, maybe we'll go juries out on meta. Like I said, I always qualified my arguments on that one. I'm purely talking about melee classes when it comes, to the meta Warlock. Sorry, mate. Go for it.
Yeah, my last thing, I don't know if it would just make them shit, but it's just the fact that they can't really be interrupted. Like it's just instant cast, and then a channel that links you both, but you can't kick that to stop it from happening. So like there's not even room to counterplay. Like there's not even a critical ability to interrupt or something to stun them during. It is just ... drain, and they just literally run around and whack me with their staff while I gradually die. I think that's probably the most irritating part of it. At least with others, like there's usually something that they really don't want you to mess up of theirs, but with them there is nothing. There is not like there's no counterplay or anything.
I have less of an. I was going to say I have less of an issue with this part of it, but like I've sort of been saying the same thing about paladins, that they seem melee immune at this point in time, but I'm less concerned about it because I think that will turn around a lot in phase 2. But anyway, we'll see. Fred, I'm so sorry, mate. Let's get you involved here because we're going to come back to the hunter at this point in time, and then we'll talk about the priest. Really diving into these hunter changes. I do find them quite interesting. I've got questions coming in my mind already. Does this, for the leveling hunter or the raiding hunter, does this swap out, Beast Mastery for Chimera Shot now? I don't know. What's your read on all those changes there, Fred?
Yeah, I think probably not. So if we look at the top parse of Warcraft logs for hunters, that's English language. The pet's doing 42% of the damage. And this parse is actually from yesterday, so it's after quite a few of the hunter nerfs. So looking at that, the way that Beast Mastery works now is still just an absolutely stellar ruin, even nerfed, right? It increases pet damage by 20%. By the way, that's 5 talent points. And it increases, your talent focus regeneration by 50%. By the way, another 5 talent points in the Beast Mastery tree. So it's already a free 10 talent points. And so the total damage output, assuming your pet is doing, 43% of your damage, well, increasing that damage by 20% is, about 8.6%. And then, of course, there's also the 50% focus regeneration. Not sure how much damage that increases. Let's just call it an even 10% total. So in order to match that by using Chimera Shot, then Chimera Shot, again, assuming that the hunter is doing about half the damage total, Chimera Shot has to be 20% of the hunter, not the pet, of the hunter's damage, because when that's half, that'll increase your total damage by 10%. And so it strikes me that, this having that Chimera Shot, every 8 seconds, that does full range damage plus maybe some damage from your Serpent Sting, that probably is not going to be 20% of your total damage output. So in that case, you're still going to be better off using Beast Mastery. And of course, that's not factoring the fact that Beast Mastery gives your pet actual taunt, which is nice to have in raid, or it gives it more health, which is nice to have in raid, or that Chimera Shot costs mana. So insofar as using Chimera Shot, you might go and you're going to lose the ability to do other stuff. So yeah, it seems to me like, insofar as people are saying there's some give and take here, that seems false to me because, again, Chimera Shot shares the slot with Beast Mastery Ruin. So long as Beast Mastery Ruin is the better Ruin, which again, as I think I just talked about the math here. It seems like it is. So long as that's true, then any buffs to anything else that shares the same rune slot with it is not really a buff at all, because it's still useless because you can only have one rune on at a time.
Gigantor is just raising the point with the talents that we'll have access to in Phase 2 down the Beast Mastery tree, Fred, that, you will get the option to increase the focus regeneration of your pet again.
Right.
Is this a fact, like a matter of we're just going to be back to square one eventually, or what?
Well, no. So, I mean, I that's what I said at the beginning. I said, the fact that you get 50% focus is 5 talent points. That was in reference to this talent tree, because you get 10 focus per point. And just to be totally clear, you also have a talent that gives you 4% damage per point, which is why I said it's 5 points there, because you're getting 20%. So that's why it's 10 talent points. We'll go right back to that. I mean, it's slightly less focus. It's 80% focus. It's 70 as opposed to 80, which is where it's at today before the nerf tomorrow. Without the nerf, it would have been 100% focus regeneration. 7 talent points. Isn't each point Bestial Discipline 10%? And you get 5 for the damage and 2 for the focus. Right. But the 2 for the focus gives you 10% each. So how much is 50%? How much is 50%? How much is 50 divided by 10? It's 5. It's 5 talent points. Obviously, you can only put 2 in there. I understand you can only put 2 in there, Gigantor. The fact of the matter is, it's as if. That's why when I was on the show a long time ago, I said it was 23 talent points. Obviously, you can't put 7 talent points in any point in the tree. Anyway, sorry, this is going to be horrible in the podcast because I'm responding to something.
No, it's totally fine. Well, let me throw in. Sorry, it's a bad moment for me, Fred, because it's like I feel like once per podcast, my mind is off with the fairies while I'm trying to think of the next question, and I miss something that you've said, and I always end up asking a question where people are like, "Josh, I just literally just fucking answered that." So I apologize for that.
No. I'm apologizing for responding to someone who's typing. And,
I know. I don't worry about
talking to me.
that.
It's gonna be hard for the listeners.
They'll see it on YouTube. Yeah. It's fine. Hey. Sorry, was someone else going to say something before I asked Fred the next question? I thought I heard someone jumping in there.
Is it right in thinking, I've never played Hunter in my life, but your marksman shit should scale a lot harder than a pet? Like, hunters are just being hunters at the moment. They've always been good sub 30 because pets are just busted early. But with bows and weapon upgrades to come, you significantly outscale your pet the further we get into the game, unless they make runes so that the pet just remains the main character.
Right. Well, I mean, they did add pet scaling, just straight up, which was not in actual vanilla. So that, I mean, depending on how hard that scaling is. I mean, one of the things they did do, which maybe is to your point, to try to make the hunter seem more like the main character, is just a few days ago, they made it so that pets can't benefit from world buffs. The reasoning was, of course, ridiculous. They said, well, we want to make sure that the pets can't double dip from your buffs, as if anything from the boon except for the attack power double dipped. None of it did. I mean, movement speed doesn't double dip. Spell hit doesn't double dip. But they said, well, we're worried about double dipping. So it seemed to me like, because it wasn't really applicable to the boon, they were worried about the ZG buff down the line, or the Onyxia buff down the line, or maybe there's just some buff that you'll get in phase 2, right? So it seems like that's what they were worried about when they made that statement. And so later down the line, I mean, we know how strong world buffs are, and if your pet doesn't scale with world buffs, whether you like it or not, you're gonna sort of be forced to have to spec more towards your hunter, even if your pet has scaling, just because world buffs are so strong.
All right, Fred, let me ask this. And look, you might have answered this, but I'm too dumb to have figured out if you did or not. I got into it, like we said, we were talking with someone on Twitter just yesterday, and we kind of got into a back and forth there, where this guy was like, hunters have to be, number 1, if not number 2 or 3 in DPS, by virtue of the fact that they're the only pure DPS class left in the game. And that's not a point I disagree with. Like, I'm with them on that. But they were kind of extending it to these nerfs to pets are unacceptable because they would be too much of an impact on what we do in PvE, and people won't want to take hunters now. And the pushback was you talk as though there's not a way to redistribute the wealth. Like I keep saying, you can put the damage somewhere else. Now, they've tried to do that here, via Chimera Shot, via maybe Explosive Shot. They're trying to, give you more mana back for other abilities. They're trying to lift hunters up and do the balancing of the scales. You give and take here. We're taking away from your pet, but we're giving you other shit. Do you feel, if we generically look at these changes, do you feel like enough was given for what was taken?
Well, again, purely in terms of the hunter's effect felt right now tomorrow, they're not, because they're going to continue using Beastmaster Ruin and not Chimera Shot or Explosive Shot, which by the way also shares the glove slot, so it's also shared with the with the Beastmaster Ruin. Purely based upon that, there was no buff, because you're going to continue using the nerfed Beastmaster Ruin, and all the buffs are to ruins that you won't use because they conflict with the Beastmaster Ruin, which is still stronger. So if you're asking me, did they get enough back in return? The first answer is, well, that's implying they got something in return, which purely from a balance perspective, as it's going to play out tomorrow. I don't know how it's going to play out, in later phases when maybe a hunter, would move away from their pet. They're not getting anything. So the question is, they're not getting anything back in return. So the question is, are they in a fine state? And yeah, I think they're probably still fine. I mean, listen, I have a Shaman, I have a Hunter. Those are two characters I have. I'm already third on the DPS charts. It's going to hurt to be pushed down even further compared to two guys, and to be scratching my head saying, oh man, it kind of sucks that you're nerfing the third best DPS and not the first two. But I understand, rogues, in my opinion, have no place whatsoever in a pre-made Warsong Gulch team. And, a warrior's place is also quite poor, which is a very stark contradiction from hunters. Perhaps if they shine more in PvE, it is some sort of just compensation for hunters being so much stronger in, a pre-made PvP setting.
All right, let's throw Holy Bones in here. Mate, how are you? We've said something that made you want to get involved.
Yeah, just echoing some of his points, but we're also forgetting the 60 raids. So we're talking right now in this phase and what's going forward with hunters. Hunters always relied on their pets up until about 50-55, even in Classic, to do most of their damage. When you start getting into the 55 to 60 bracket range, your gear, once you eclipse, I think it's 250 or 275 agi, you start eclipsing your pet damage with straight marksmanship builds because of the percentage adds that come from the marksmanship tree. Also, pets have a flat mischance. They can't be buffed to hit, whereas a hunter can cap his hit out at 9 or 6 with weapon specialization. So there's a lot more, comprehensive damage or steady damage coming from the hunter as opposed to a hunter pet, which also doesn't get prioritized on healing. So when you get into the 55 to 60 raid content, a hunter marksman is going to outshine a hunter beastmaster. Now, with the runes, that might even out a little bit, but with all the cleaves, the AoE damage, the poison damage that goes on in the 60 raids, your pet just will not have enough flat survivability, because you can't potion a pet. You can't put a nature protection potion on him. You can't put a frost protection potion on him. You can't put fire protection on him. You can't do any of that you can do to the hunter. So the hunter will survive and do more DPS in the long run than having a pet at the beginning. So all of the debate that we're having right now in these phases is good for the game, but it's still the same as vanilla. Vanilla hunters relied on their pet up until the point that they started to outgear the pet. Once you start to outgear the pet, you respec to marksman or marksman survival or a 20-31 build where the pet still does good damage, but you're still reliant on your marksmanship abilities to actually carry the load of the damage.
I agree with everything you said, Holly. Absolutely. I guess the progenitor of this conversation, though, was in the Season of Discovery version of that style of gameplay that you're discussing. It opened up a bizarre avenue for PvP possibilities for the hunter, and that's what spawned this whole
PvP will vastly change next phase when hunters get their slowing trap, their slowing AoE frost trap, flare for stealths, and you can respec into what we call snare traps, where you have a 30-second frost trap that can snare somebody every 3 seconds. Hunters control the entirety of Warsong Gulch with just 2 to 3 hunters patrolling mid with improved concussive shot and snare traps. And 2 hunters can control an entire blacksmith in Arathi Basin by themselves with snare traps. So, the whole thing about PvP being broken with Beastmasters, I guarantee you're going to see a lot more survivalist hunters, or at least 15 points into survival so that they can get the full trap mastery or snare traps, and then the rest into Beastmaster to get intimidation.
Is there an argument? Is there an argument there, though, that given what's coming, if the hunters were not to have received this pet nerf, that they were doing enough damage with their pets that it could alter their gameplay to the point that they just forego traps because they don't need them anymore? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
In a small contained scenario like Warsong Gulch, yeah, I completely agree that a hunter sending his pet or 2 hunters sending their pets directly for the healers in the back would totally control the map if you didn't have fears and you didn't have anything else going on with those pets. Hunters will wreck just about any Warsong with their pets right now. But in Arathi Basin, you're more spread out and you're more segmented. There's not going to be large force battles versus large force battles unless you come up against 2 death balls. 15 people massing together and just going from node to node to node. In most pugs, you're not going to get that. You're going to get 3 over to lumber mill, 5 down to blacksmith, 8 over to the mine, and running up to stables, from the horde side. You're going to get a large contingent going up to lumber mill from ally side. You're going to get a lot more spread out battles. And at that point, the hunter sends his pet after somebody. The hunter doesn't have a whole lot of places to go if the people choose to ignore or crowd control the pet or put a protection warrior on him, and the protection warrior is just sitting there blocking every pet attack that he can. And the DPS go focus the hunter.
If I can grab you, though, to go down, like, I know it's not everyone's jam, but just on the world PvP front, I'll sort of, put the foot on the gas for my point again, where I sort of say, when we do take, STV and what's to come and world PvP into account, we're so used to that tactical hunter gameplay style involving traps. Again, given the talents that are coming for them in phase 2, wouldn't you would you agree or disagree that there is a world there that again the hunters could maybe forego that traditional gameplay style of being tactical and smart with their traps, as opposed to just brute forcing everything with their pet if this nerf didn't come through.
Yeah, I mean, I could see them brute forcing it with the pet, but again, you could get 3 hunters up against 7 people because of an uneven battle in Arathi Basin. In world PvP, let's say STV. STV is littered with a large range of mobs, levels. Littered with them. You have some stealth, you have humanoids, you have elite ogres. That a hunter just roaming around and his pet gets on somebody, if that person can fear him and get that pet going into a group of mobs, well, that pet's dead. So what's the hunter to do then? Well, the hunter's not doing any damage because all of his rune slots are tied up with his pet. All of his talents are tied up with his pet. The hunter's just going to try and run away.
Go, Fred.
Sorry. The world PvP in STV is a lot different than world PvP in Asheville.
No, that's fair. It's very congested. Absolutely. Fred, go for it.
Right. So I think maybe you're inadvertently making the point I wanted to make here, which is ultimately pets are so strong, especially with scaling here, that, and the talents at 40 for full BM are so strong. I personally find it very doubtful that we're going to see that many survival hunters, because the strength of brute forcing your pet is just crazy. I mean, you brought in as one of the issues that your pet's going to get feared. Guess what? If you have 40 point or 31 points, your capstone in BM, your pet is immune to all CC for 18 seconds, and it does 50% bonus damage.
But that's only every 3 minutes. You're telling me that you're going to wait 3 minutes in between every fight in world PvP?
Oh, there's a lot of people that will.
Rogues do it.
There's a lot of people that will.
I'm not one of those people.
I mean, your
man.
pet
I'm balls to the wall. I'm gonna fight till I die.
3 minutes goes very quickly.
I'm still just subscribed to see one of these unicorn hunters you talk about that can handle 3 players. They can't control their fucking pet, yet alone 3 other players killing them.
Well, I do agree with the point. Sorry, Fred, one sec. I was just going to say I do agree with the point in YouTube chat, which is we've sort of touched on this, but this is a absolutely underlined thing for me as well, and we'll talk about it again when we come to the priest very soon. But if in order to overcome a certain class in PvP, you must have more than one player to do it, now we're getting problematic.
But that's almost every uneven match. Like, say you're a resto shaman. A resto shaman's not going to do well in 1v1
that's a very rough example to bring up. Say like a healer first that kills someone in PvP.
A boomkin. A boomkin versus a shadow priest who has shadow form and is taking 15% less damage.
Well, then here we go though. But is it a bad shadow priest versus an okay boomkin? Is there hope in that?
But we're taking the players as even level players. Those classes don't match. Those classes do not make a good PvP match.
And yeah,
the boomkin has no way to get out of fear. The shadow priest has protection against spell damage built in, and a scaling damage buff with shadow form and shadow mastery.
Yeah, but
his shadow debuffs.
I'm okay with paper scissors rock. I fully embrace paper scissors rock vanilla style PvP. I think it's great, but I think the two things on that: paper scissors rock number one can only go so far. Whereas if it's like half the classes in this game that fall under the fucking paper category and your scissors, that's an issue. But also outside of that, it's not paper scissors rock with the hunter when every other class is being decimated by it.
True. At this phase, yes. I'm still of the thing that at this phase, nobody has their full toolkit. Hunters are front loaded with their toolkit and pets. Just like paladins are front loaded right now.
Mm-hmm.
Paladins, yes, they get their ret bombs and everything. Don't get me started on that. But they're front loaded with Divine Storm, Crusader Strike, Retribution Aura, their stun, their Seal of Command. They get a lot of front-loaded damage talents and skills. Not every class does. A lot of classes get their talents and their skills in the 40 to 60 range.
That's fair. That's fair. Ubiquitous, sorry, you're going to say something?
Can someone tell me, is it a case with hunters at the moment? Is that just them in their raid spec anyway? Like, are you just full cruising PvE spec and you're doing this to people? I don't actually know.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's another thing. Like, that's what annoys me, is that there's people out here that are PvP gods when they're just being a raiding Andy. Like, if it's like the difference between versing a rogue out in the world that's just combat and then one that's actually deep sub with prep and shit. The combat rogue shouldn't get an opinion on PvP because they're not even helping themselves with the spec. But the fact that hunters are out there with their raid spec and raid pet and raid gear and they're shredding people.
That was part of my point with my encounter with the cat the other day. I'm full bis except for my weapon on my warrior in my PvP spec, and it came down to the last hit soloing a hunter cat that had another mob on it.
Yeah, that's where, like, I think you're not playing rock paper scissors anymore when it's that ridiculous. But I do agree, like, some people are really bad at looking at, like, I have gripes with rogue, but I think we're perfectly fine in PvP. There's plenty of classes I can beat. I just mentioned the hunter thing a lot because I just think it's not particularly fun. If I was playing a hunter, I wouldn't be standing there going, gee, isn't this a good PvP battle? I just put Aspect of the Monkey on and hope I dodge enough shit that my pet can kill them for me.
But the problem is half the player base are weirdos who do think it's really cool and fun because they're winning.
Well, props to them, but like I can see, Rogue is missing heaps, so that's where I kind of, I hold back a bit on really complaining to know that things will get better and we don't know exactly what we're getting. I just like to focus on the parts of the game that just seem like wrong, even though some people don't agree that it's wrong. That's where I get caught up on. Someone's got to be king this phase, right?
Yeah, I'm glad this nerf has come in now, the day that my hunter is going to hit 25, so no one can be like, oh, you just wanted a hunter for these fucking stupid pets. Now I'm not going to be able to experience the stupid pet, and I'm okay with that. Fred, you were going to say one last thing, I think, before I move on to priests?
Yeah, just a few things. So first off, Bestial Wrath is a 2-minute cooldown, not a 3-minute cooldown. Which it's actually a 50% difference. So,
that is that.
The idea that you would wait for 2 minutes is not really that crazy. Also, intimidation is really important, which is the stun. Yeah. And if you don't have scatter shot, you need something to self peel if someone gets a drop on you. You have nothing. I mean, I guess you could try to like raw feign death trap someone, but that's a little bit tough. So having a pet stun is super, super important. And then also, when you're first bringing up talking about hunters at 60 holy, again, I do want to stress, and you talked about, you're going to outgear your pet. Again, unlike in vanilla, in SOD, there is just passive pet scaling, which does not come from runes. Not runes. They just get scaling passively from your own stats. So as you gear up, your pet is also gearing up. So it doesn't
is that coming from the gear, or is that coming from your base stats?
That's coming from from your gear. It's a passive based upon the stats that you have. Your pet, I think, gets 20% of your stats, whatever they are. That's why, for example, they said we don't want world buffs double dipping, because whatever buffs you got as a hunter, your pet would get 20% of it, or whatever. So if your pet got 100% of the world buff as well, then your pet would have 120% of the buff. So again, the idea that you might outgear your pet is not entirely clear to me, because as you gear up, your pet also gears up. And then you have crazy multipliers in the BM tree. I mean, you got 20% damage, you got 30% attack speed all the time, you got 15% crit.
I'm not arguing that Beastmaster's not going to be good. I'm just saying that we need to pump the brakes that Beastmaster is going to be the meta.
Well, I don't know if I'm not saying it is for sure, but it does not seem to me at all to be a foregone conclusion that it wouldn't be at 60, just because of passive pet scaling with your own stats. I mean, people played BM Hunter and TBC all the way through. Of course, there was 2 additional talents there, and also this kill command steady shot thing, which made it worth it. But it's pet scaling is a big part of it. So just declaring because in actual vanilla you would outgear your pet it doesn't make sense in this context where your pet effectively gears with you because it gets bonus stats from your stats.
Interesting, because I had just logged on my hunter and unequipped 3 pieces of my gear, and
Yeah, it's snapshots. Just Mr. Pet and resummon it.
yeah, there it goes. Yeah, it's still a low percentage though. It's not super high.
Right, but it's also not nothing.
No,
All right.
but it looks like it's only going to the power and not the crit and agi, not their raw stats. It's just applying to their power.
Yeah, I mean that's fair enough.
It'll be interesting to see if it's enough to make like pet owner like the PvE meta spec in raiding. It's definitely a help. It'll be interesting to see if it does scale hard enough to keep up.
I'm going to throw one last thing at you, Fred, and Holy, you play Hunter as well. I'd love to hear from you too. Just one last quick point. If I am cosplaying as the angry hunter right now, reading this blue post going, you fucking bastards, you did it. You dicked us on the fucking PvE meters. You know, our damage is sunk. We're the only pure DPS class in the game. Now we're going to come fucking 4th or 5th on the meters. This is bullshit. Do you guys think that will be the case, or do you think that this will still leave hunters in a perfectly acceptable position damage-wise?
4th or 5th is still beating all the casters.
How do you? But how do you feel?
As long as I beat Clothies, I don't care.
Well, I asked this question, and I'm genuinely asking this, not in bad faith. You know, by being the only pure DPS class in the game, do you hunters believe that you have a birthright to the number 1 or 2 slot on the meters?
But are we a pure DPS class? Because now you've pretty much turned our pets into tanks with the taunt and the damage. So you've essentially turned us into tank handlers at a certain point. I mean, I tanked stockades with my pet the other day. So, you know, are we is a true DPS class as a character? Yes. But is that the only role that we're serving when we go into raid? No.
Okay.
It's all you should be, mate.
Fred, I'll throw it to you to finish up on, and I'll just say, like, I completely agree that hunters should be very, very high on the old DPS charts if this is all you can do. But I am unsure and get shaky on the question of we should be, by all intentions, number 1 basically, because it's all we can do.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of the hybrid tax, so I just reject that argument outright. And then onto bad news for you, though, Holy, which is with this nerf, I could see hunters falling just below Warlock. So if you're trying to, beat all the casters, that might not be true, assuming you consider a Warlock a caster, which I do, of course. I do. But yeah, no, I just reject that argument straight up. I think the hybrid tax is stupid. That's just a hypertext argument. So that's my response.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Even if it benefits me as a hunter, I'm not going to use the hypertext argument.
Fair enough. All right, guys, let's quickly talk about priests, and then we might start to wind this one up. Look, like I said earlier, I alluded to a potential third argument here, and I want to hear from you guys on whether or not prior to this nerf, and I'll read out the nerf, I want to know if you would have classified priests in PvP in the absurd category or not. I was a little more 50-50 on it. Look, Hunk and I had a wild encounter against a priest just 2 nights ago on our server where, 2 level 25s, Hunk and I could not take down one priest. He just laughed in our faces and healed through everything. Our jaws were on the ground, and a lot of people have been talking about how strong priest healing is in PvP. Again, fair for you guys to say it's a fucking skill issue. You and Hunk are fucking shit players, blah, 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 whatever. But it has been a common comment about the priest healing. So it must have been something, because Blizzard has stepped in with the following change that reads as follows. Base healing done by rune abilities has been reduced by 20% for priests. And they make the comment, priests are outperforming other healers significantly. This adjustment will apply to Prayer of Mending, Penance, and Circle of Healing. So keeping that in mind, first in, best dressed, did you guys think that priests were absurd in PvP? Or if not absurd, was this nerf warranted?
Oh, they're absurd.
Agreed. Absurd is an understatement.
Yeah, I can single heal an entire BFD run with no consumables as a priest. Like, why? You should not be able to do that as any healer. Doesn't mean
Well,
wanted
I would point out that other healers are capable of doing that too, not necessarily just a priest.
No, but I sit there and I don't even worry about my mana bar.
Yeah,
it's a little funny. It's like if you're
the shaman.
Hang on, go Chain, and then we'll go to Ubiquitous.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I've solo healed BFD on my shaman, and I don't really worry about my mana either.
Gotcha.
Again, depending on how fast you're going, but if you're taking it just bit by bit, and you're like, okay, hey, let's just stroll through this, like, it's fairly close to the shaman as well, and the druid could be down the same line with how they've least built the AoE capability for almost all healers except for maybe the paladin.
Yeah, but in PvP,
kind of walking down that.
But going back to Josh's point, in PvP, if I can run as a priest, cast Renew, and Prayer of Mending on the first person I know is going to be targeted, then that's an auto jump heal around my entire raid. I can cast Circle of Healing on the run. I can stand still and do penance and bring somebody up from 10% up to 90%. Or 100% if one of them crits. And I've only stood still for 3 seconds.
That's fair point.
It's insane.
I'll throw it to Ubiquitous. I'll just add in the following as well, because you guys already lightly touched on it. It wasn't just necessarily the strength of the heals as well, but a mana thing where, like, you know, Hunk and I were screaming at each other while trying to take down this priest, going like, it not only is he healing comfortably through this damage, but I said to Hunk at one stage, like, he's been healing for 10 seconds. Why is his mana not going down? Like, it was crazy. Ubiquitous. Sorry, you're going to say something?
It's always funny. Like, I haven't done a BFD with a priest and them not been like, look at me. How ridiculous is this? But then if you sit them down in a steel chair and go, do you need a nerf? They'll be like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. We're okay. This is fine. And it's like, but it's almost like you need to do a bit of entrapment off camera and be like, here he is laughing at the pub at how ridiculous he is and how strong he is. But when they're being interrogated about should they get the nerf bat, it's always like, oh no, I think it's pretty fair.
Yeah.
We're in a spot.
Fair
well,
enough.
that's because we don't have Shadow Form yet, man. So we don't have an alternative route to go down.
Let me introduce Judah, who I know plays a priest. Isn't that right, Judah?
Oh, yeah.
All right, mate. Give it to us. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, mostly I actually can't stick around very long for chatting purposes, but
All good.
I did hop in to say, pun intended, as a priest player, is like, that's my main class. I think the 20% nerf totally has my blessing. I think it's pun aside, I think it fits. It's so penance is specifically so strong. Circle of Healing, I don't think I've used it once. I have the rune. It just the amount it heals on per individual for the cost is just not very. It's pretty lackluster compared to penance, which is at 25 costs 79 mana, and it will heal without any of them critting the 3, because each 3 can individually crit. Without any of them critting, you're healing over 500 health in 2 seconds. It's just so strong in PvP and in PvE. I can go to a BFD, basically solo heal it with lackluster gear and not sweat once on any of, except for maybe a few moments during Kelris. But
let me know if you can't stick around for this, but if I can just throw one question at you there, Judah, because I feel it's important for you to touch on this as a priest rather than all of us non-priests answering this question. But you got like Ren Keck saying in the Discord chat, healing's our only viable spec that we have. Why can't that be 20% better than the other classes for one phase? What do you have to say to a suggestion like that?
Yeah, and I mean, and to that point, I consider myself specifically a PvE shadow guy, a DPS PvE person. So part of that I agree with in the sense of I appreciate the buffs they've been giving us in the PvE part. It's still kind of not enough. We're doing better, but really, I mean, I knew that going into SOD. It was like looking at the runes, we're gonna pretty much suck for phase 1 PvE, or for DPS is what I'm trying to say. I'm really waiting until next phase. I think even after this 20% nerf, um, it'll be a feels crafty thing, but I don't flinch to. I still think we'll be super strong. Like, okay, now instead of my penance doing, without any crits doing 550 healing, oh no, now I do. What would that be, like 470 or something? Like you're still going to be
400,
strong.
440, something like that.
Or 40. Okay. It's still strong. Like one moment.
I'll throw this
Like,
out. Sorry, go ahead.
going back to what you said about being 20% better than every other class for one phase. Well, we just did. This nerf is only coming 3 weeks before
The next phase. Yeah.
So we've essentially been the best healer for one phase.
Yeah.
And we'll be high up on the DPS charts with Shadow Form next phase.
Yeah. He's right, damn it.
Yeah. I also I don't super love that argument because it's like they're intentionally changing the way each spec for the class feels, right, with these runes. So I think the idea of well, you're going to pay for it next phase, you don't have to. No one has to be overpowered in any way one phase just so that they can be mediocre the next. They can make them not so strong this phase and buff them a little bit the next phase, and it can go both ways. I think I'm kind of surprised they let the healing go this long buffed. I think they should have nerfed it. As a priest player, I know this is crazy, but I think they should have nerfed it sooner. And then if you need to buff them a little next phase for some reason, I don't think you will. Do it then. Try to make it balanced for the whole phase, and you can always adjust per phase. You have these epochs of phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. You can adjust as needed relative to talents you have and gear you have, etc.
I just find it funny that with the runes that they gave to priest, that this goes out to all the other priest players. How many times have you actually cast a flash heal or a full heal in a raid without using penance, prayer of mending, shield, or renew? You're using 4 skills for the most part in an entire raid. You're not even using your main holy skills.
And one of them is a press and forget fucking ping pong unless you force it yourself with a proc. Prayer of Mending will just do its job.
Yeah. I prayer of mending the tank, and if I see that he's hovering at 95%, rank 1 renew on him just to make it jump.
Yeah.
Guys, we'll hit the home stretch. Go. I invited you in here, and I would love to know your thoughts if you have any strong feelings on the priest here that we've been discussing.
Yeah, it just looks like they're trying to rebalance their damage nerf in Warsong, so they reduced everybody's damage by 20%, but they did nothing with the healing in Warsong. And since people are stacking 2-3 priests per pre-made, then yeah, something needed to be done for the priest. I don't even think 20% is enough. I'll say it. Give it a 40% reduction.
There you go. Wow.
I think there is a severe lack of... I don't think there's any minus healing done. Rogues don't have wound poison, warriors don't have mortal strike, so that's helped them a lot. And then, like you said, they only nerfed the damage in Warsong. I did a few this morning, and there was a warlock. It was against the pre-made, so we're just getting graveyard camped. But one priest kept one warlock alive against 7 DPS for legitimately 2 minutes, and even the druid was like, "Holy shit, you're amazing! How did you do that?" And the priest just said, "Pom lol, penance lol." That's it.
Well, that's what I think brought about this change. And then it's back to the kind of the PvP factor. Again, even though, guys, I know every time I talk, I'm leaning open world PvP because I don't spend much time in battlegrounds, but you guys will have more battleground experience than me. But this isn't one of those complaints, I don't think, where people are like, oh, this is just Josh being a fuckwit. This was out there. People were noticing. People were talking about hey, I'm fighting priests and they're just laughing in my face and healing through everything. What's going on?
Open world PvP as a healing priest, I 1v1'd a warlock, and it took 3 minutes because he sacrificed his Voidwalker, he potioned, he healthstoned, he did everything he could to try and keep his health up, and I was at like half mana,
Yeah.
just sitting there laughing at him, half mana,
On
full
cruise
health.
control.
Like, yeah, bye. I'll just sit here and dance while you die.
Anyone else on the PvP aspect of it? Was it 100% necessary for PvP?
Agreed. So, I've done a fair amount of PvP. I've got 2 characters that are each over 10,000 rep in Warsong Gold Channel at this point. So, I don't know, it's a lot of games. I'm sure some people have plenty of Exalted and they think I'm some noob here, but I've done a fair amount. And yeah, I mean, the idea that you would run like any other healer in your pre-made besides a priest, and you usually want 3 of them, and you kind of feel bad if you're only bringing 2 of them. I mean, they just so far outclassed every other healer. It wasn't, it's just not even funny. So yes, they very much needed a nerf for that reason, I think, just because no other healer could compete with them. And they were so crucial to your team.
Druid with Wild Growth could take the place of that 3rd priest, but you wouldn't take one of the 2 main priests out, no.
Right. So and this is crazy because, I mean, when you think about priests, you think, well, renews don't stack. Power Word Shield puts a debuff on someone. It doesn't matter. You still want to stack priests. It's just.
Let me throw this at you, Fred, because I have to address this, but I can't go in too hard or I'll be called a bully. So I'll sick you on this comment, Fred. Look, you guys know one of my bigger pet peeves is gamer hyperbole. Look, Renkek, I appreciate nerfs are never well received, but I really have to push back at, you thrown it out there in the Discord that now priests will be shit at healing because of this 20% nerf.
They won't.
And yeah, that's what I want to ask you guys. Like, is that an overreaction? Where do we feel at? Same question I asked with the hunters. With this nerf, does this fuck this class, or is it still okay?
Is he I think he maybe is talking about damage, not healing.
No. He's talking about healing. He says, sorry, Rand, I have to quote you. I just want to thank Blizzard for nerfing priest healers by 20%. It's not bad enough that warriors out DPS us by double now. By double. Now we can suck at healing too. Appreciate it.
Oh, I see.
Okay, so he's coming from a Shadow Priest perspective that's being forced to heal
I
because
get
he doesn't
that.
do enough damage.
I get, my heart goes out to you on the Shadow Priest perspective. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, healing 20%. All right, so just to put this in perspective, I ran with a Druid healer the other night in BFD, and we 2-healed it. I'm sitting there half mana. He's I'm looking at the healing charts, and I'm outdoing him by 30%. That minus 20% balances us out a little bit to where I'm still a better healer, but maybe not. Maybe now I'm having to be forced to take a mana potion, or maybe I have to wait for some spirit ticks to regain my mana and keep going. It brings us back to the pack, but we're still the leader of the pack because we are still the best healer in the game at this level.
I don't whenever I've done BFD and watched what the priest healer's been up to, you're not exactly casting the whole time. So heaven forbid, now you might fill those 10-second gaps where POM just carried you with some flash heals, and your output will probably still be the same. You just might have to press more than one button every 6 seconds now. Heaven forbid. Like, you're actually not going to be any worse. You're just going to start doing more. You'll probably, through brute force of actually casting spells, and like you said, maybe actually use a mana pot, you're probably going to do more healing because there's only so much damage that's getting taken anyway. You're clearly topping up all the HP bars. Now they'll just be topped up with a POM and a flash heal rather than just a POM. You press one more button, they still stay alive. I don't think it's that bad.
Right. And again, that 20% difference is not that big of a deal when it only applies to your rune abilities.
Yeah.
You still benefit from the cast coefficient and your base skills and get the full plus healing benefits.
But
so you can still play a classic priest play style and just now weave in your rune abilities. as opposed to just depending on the new shiny runes.
It's very similar to the hunter argument where the hunters were saying, you know, if we're only good at one thing, we should be number one at it. And now Rend is sort of raising a somewhat similar argument going, look, if Shadow DPS is going to suck and we're healers, then we have to be the clear, front runner for healing. I disagree with that. I know what you're saying, Rend. Could have been a 10% nerf instead of a 20% nerf and still left you slightly ahead of the pack. My concern with that, though, is just what the player base does with stuff like that in terms of class stacking. Like we're talking about, like now people only want priests in Battlegrounds. If it becomes very evident over a long period of time that even priests are just 10% better than every other healer in the game, when we get to 60 and raids get larger and all that shit, like all your healers that aren't priests, what are they left to do when people start saying they're only going to take priests to raid?
Right, and priests have always been a better healing class per mana, or HP per mana. They've always had the most efficient heals outside of the Shaman Chain heal and Critidin Paladin. But those only happen at 60, where you can stack as much plus healing and crit gear. But leveling up pre-60, pre-raid, a priest has always been the best. And I challenge anybody to argue a different point on that one. So this 20% nerf is only applying to the rune abilities. I still go back to, if you're a good priest and you've played priest through Classic and Wrath and TBC, then you're not dependent on those rune abilities to carry you. It just made it easier in this iteration.
Guys, we'll hit the home stretch now, and I'll just say we've talked about everything I pretty much wanted to talk about. I don't have any of my points on my little cheat sheet here left. I just want to wind up with a point from all of you. I'd love to hear from all of you left here, just really, really quick. The next episode we'll do the phase 1 review. I've talked about all the miscellaneous topics I wanted to cover now. Let's do a little bit of a constructive criticism tour. Any quick points that we haven't discussed that you guys really want to get out there into the ether about the game so far that you've noticed, whether it's, a bug, an ability, or the way your class is playing or what have you. A little bit of constructive feedback for the devs. Who wants to start first while the others think of their point?
I'll go for it.
Go, hit me.
The loot drops in BFD, I have not seen the caster staff one time. It's contested to all hell compared to all other weapons in there. So even if I do get to see it drop one time in the next 8 lockouts, however many there are left, I'm going to really hope and beg and plead to whoever I'm in the raid with, can I please have that staff? So that's just one item, though. I've gotten a lot of my other gear in every other slot, but just a little bit different way of acquiring gear in phase 2 would be nice.
Yeah.
Some sort of token system or something from the drops that we have in Wrath or something. Whatever it ends up being would be nice.
The staff does seem, whether it's just, a data bias or whatnot, just from what I've seen, the staff does seem to be quite rare. I think our guild saw our first one. It might have been the second one. I think it was the first one last night in my raid. We all lost our shit when it dropped, and it went to a great guildie, so that's fantastic. But yeah, it seems to be quite the rarity.
Now I feel guilty because I got it my first run in BFD.
Beautiful.
Oh, nice.
on a healing priest.
Yeah,
we haven't seen
that's
one
why.
since.
That's why the people coming at you, Holy, will be like, "Oh, that's why he's comfortable with the nerf."
Yeah, about that. My biggest thing as a hunter player, when I'm not PvPing and I'm just in the open world, I love to hunt rare spawns. In this time-gated season, I would love to see them bring down the timers on rare spawns.
Oh yeah,
because getting a rare pet look is awesome. finding a rare spawn that only drops the one item in the game that you never got before. That's awesome.
Yeah, like do you mean like
those-
that weight? Not that necessarily this would be the case, but like for example, the wait for Broken Tooth seems worse on a shorter life server. Is that what you mean?
Exactly. Or the rare basilisk that drops a blue sword in Thousand Needles. That's the coolest looking sword pre 60 in the game. And just for looks and shits and giggles, I want to get it, and I've never been able to get it. Because he's on a 36-hour freaking respawn time.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, that's go. That's Holy. Who wants to go next with their constructive criticism?
I'm on a similar vein to Go in that now that we have played through it, I think the loot tables are just way too massive for a 10-man raid. If it was every boss after Jet or Jet onwards, I think drops 20 to 24 items each.
Half of them we've never seen.
Yeah, and like some of them I've never seen, and like if there was 20 raiders, you wouldn't care that fucking spell power leather drops every week. But if you're running with guildies, it's like that shit's been getting DE'd for 12 runs in a row now because the one person that needed it got it, and now it's just getting binned. So like either I think the loot tables could have been either shrunk down a little bit more, or the bosses could have dropped more. But you could even it's like what they did with, if I remember correctly, like KT and Nax was a guarantee that it almost had two separate loot tables within the loot table. You'd get one item from either half.
Yep.
I think they could go down that avenue again, so that the boss will always drop at least one of the tier bits and one of the other off bits, instead of just getting two off bits and both of them have been getting DE'd for 8 runs in a row now. I think that could be a little bit better. That's probably my biggest gripe, and it's only now that I've gotten to this point of playing so many or gone through so many BFDs, and I finally got Atlas loot, and I went, Jesus Christ, these bosses drop a lot of shit. No wonder I've never seen the leather boots drop once ever. I mean, there's 4 bosses that can drop them, but all 4 of those bosses drop 23 other things. Yeah. So now I'm not surprised I haven't seen them. That's probably my only genuine criticism.
No, it's a valid argument to bring up. I'm not really sure how I feel about it, just thinking about it on the spot now. I'd love to hear from you other guys. Let's say the Kelrus and Akumai loot tables, too big or just right?
Too big.
Too big, Chain says, yeah.
It's the perfect amount. It's just not dropping enough items. Let it drop 5 of those items a run.
Yeah, I think like they pretty much all just drop 2, right? I can't believe that I can't remember these things when I do it twice a week. But
That's correct.
Yeah, so like I genuinely think the last 2 bosses could drop freaking 4 bits, to be honest, and I don't think it would dilute the game that much. But just because those are the bosses, the last 4 are the ones where you're getting a lot of your set pieces from. I think, I'm not saying that they should have made it a 20-man, but I feel like the loot table would suit a 20-man and dropping 4 or 5 bits per boss instead of 30 bits of loot on a boss. He drops 2. Mind you, literally some of these bits aren't even like that incredible. Like someone gets it and they're like, I guess I'll take it. It's not my bis, but I'll take it as an upgrade.
Yeah.
Like, God damn it.
Jiganator in chat brings up a good point that you don't want everybody best and sodded out or right out of the gate. Like, you still want to incentivize people to play their mains and bring their mains to the raid.
Yeah, there's always that line in the sand. Like, there's going to be freak RNG or just like corrupt loot council prio where you get everything. But like, for example, I've done every BFD lockout on, and this isn't a loot whinge. I'm pretty happy with where my characters ended up. But just to use an example, I've done every BFD since the very first lockout and not missed one. And I could still do with 3 more bits from BFD, and like a lot of the rogue loot, you don't even have bits from BFD. Like, you don't have the cape, you don't have braces.
Well, you got the strength stam cape and the Agi spirit cape, so you got your pick on kind of.
Yeah, but like they're not capes. Like I can just Sergeant cape's better, and I'm getting that today. There is no wrist drop that's really worth mentioning. The
No,
belt
there's
piece is
none.
from a quest.
Yeah.
Like there's a few slots there where you're not even getting them from raid, and I'm missing a few slots on top of that. And like I have been the diligent player. I've played every run. I've gone every
Oh,
lockout. And like I'm
I
not
agree.
saying that you should 100% be BIS, but I'm not really that close. So like, maybe I've just been unlucky. Maybe I'm on the other half of,
Oh,
you know,
I'm on the complete other half. All of our rogues, druids, and warriors are completely kitted out. Our caster loot, we've seen one helm the entire time, and it's the set piece. We've not seen the wizard cap, and we haven't seen any more set pieces. I'm still
Yeah.
wearing my bandana from Warsong in there because I got
Yeah,
no
I
other
think
headpiece.
it feels pretty bad. Like I've actually had the luxury of luxury and a blessing and a curse of doing a lot of pugs. So there hasn't been that much wastage. And then I went to a guild run the previous lockout, and it's like I think we were excited because two people took 2 upgrades in the entire place because they've been a consistent 10-man and they just keep getting the same garbage drop. But like heaps of them still need loot. They just not, like it was the first run I went to where they're like no one needs the pearl. So they just like I don't know, someone just destroyed it or vended it or whatever. But I think that's kind of I'd have to sit and probably dive further into it, but at a glance, I feel like that's a symptom of a loot system that's not quite working out, or it wouldn't quite be fun to go with the same 10 people and you're like, all of us still need stuff, but we did a full clear and not one person got 1 upgrade, even though there's like 26 items between the 10 of them that they could have equipped. I think that's pretty outrageous. I don't know if the token system suits vanilla, but I mean, I think it would work pretty well if they want to keep it this bloated, because then at least like the helm can drop surely between 4 classes that can hand it in. One of them's going to use it for something.
Yeah, that would be nice if they went to a Nax AQ style token system.
Yeah, keep it vanilla. If I can make do a quest of the token afterwards, or get some mats or some shit, that made it slightly difficult and annoying, but fun. And I think they should go down that route.
Make us get the rep for the trading councils to have access to make it.
Maybe that's something down the road.
Crazy.
Who knows?
Yeah. Like
something crazy like that.
Shane, I'll throw it to you, and then we'll go to Fred to finish up. Any constructive criticism notes from you, Shane?
I've had a gripe against the waylaid almost from the beginning.
Even after the change?
Mostly not that. Even after the change, for me, my gripe, I don't know how much of a popular opinion, is I've never liked the way it was implemented. Because classic to me is, like, especially lower, is I don't got a lot of bag space. And if I want to waste my bag space by having a lot of those, quote unquote crates and stack it, and then go with it from there, then that should necessarily be my choice. But to sit there and choose, okay, let this sit here, and then do it whenever, like what rep grind, or when you collect things to turn in, are you literally only ever having allowed to have 1 instead of stacking and then turning it in?
I'm just on the whole, I'll say this, whilst like there are still potentially light tweaks that could be made to the system, like we've said multiple times on the podcast, like, let them, if you let them carry 3 boxes but they gave you less rep, that seems like a fair compromise in my mind. But I'll just make this one note, and Agrend was sort of talking about this in the Countdown Discord just the other day very quickly. I share Agrend's position where I'm kind of gobsmacked, like truly, truly shocked at the amount of hate and vitriol that's been pointed towards the waylaid supply system. Like even after the change, not, you're not a bad person if you don't like it. Fucking each to their own. Everyone has their own personal taste. But I'm really, really shocked that the classic player base has rallied against this thing as much as they have. Like I fucking loved it. And I've discovered I'm in like a minority. And if at first my knee-jerk reaction was kind of like, oh, it's probably like retail players that don't really like this. It doesn't feel, very intuitive for them to be like traveling around and all that shit. But it's not that. It's classic players. It's old school vanilla players going, I fucking hate this. This is bullshit. And whilst I understand a lot of the points, I'm still really, really shocked at just how forcefully people are pushing back against it. Like, I think the design was very smart and cute in a weird way, but that's just me.
It
Well,
was
like-
a
like
good
I-
design. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, my point for the most part was I don't mind the grind rep or grinding for the rep and the way they implement it. Like, I think it's cool using the professions, using the lower tier, for the economy and all that other kind of stuff. It was just more of like how it was implemented, where it's like they restricted you when, like I said, a lot of times I would rather, like, I don't know, the choice if I want to carry multiple and waste that bag space instead of collecting other things.
I would say
the choice was kind of taken away from you on being able to collect more of them and then deal with them instead of like, well, you just get one and then either deal with it or just keep leaving more and more until it finally pisses you off enough to go in and fill it in or just hand it in.
I would add this. So sorry,
you could only
Natalie.
hand it in capital cities. When you're leveling up, you're spending the bulk of your time out in the world. Having to go back to the capital city when I don't have to train new skills, I don't have to put anything in the bank, I don't have to do anything else but hand in this waylaid supply.
I feel like a weirdo. I go back to capital cities all the fucking time when I'm leveling. Like it and this is the thing, it wasn't an issue for me. But like, I'll also just say, I respect that that's not the meta for leveling when you're min-maxing your time and getting to level 25 in the least amount of time possible. You barely ever go back to capital cities. But I personally
just like questing. I like being in the zone and staying in the zone. I'm a completionist. If I got quests going on in the zone, I want to finish them.
Oh, I do them too. I just go back to town all the time while I'm doing it.
But I go back to town. I don't go back to the capital city. That might be a 15-minute flight.
Oh, 15 minutes. Settle down. Let's settle down a little bit. You are never a 15-minute trip away from a capital city.
All right, maybe not 15 minutes, maybe 6 minutes.
Okay,
7
well,
minutes.
that's very different.
All right, so Ashenvale to Darnassus. That's what, an 8-minute flight?
Oh yeah. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate it can get up there, but that's why I sort of like let's not double the figure.
All right, but 8 minutes. But so that's 16 minutes back and forth. So there's your 15 minutes, Josh.
All right. What about if you got your hearth up?
Shut up.
Hey, but on that, I just want to sort of continue. I should add this point, and I really sound like I'm, defending the devs a lot on this one, but like I said, I really didn't have many dramas with the system. But like, I would again along the same lines of the rogue tanking thing. Like, I would say to everyone who hated waylaid supplies, and I know your answer will probably be yes, but have you done it on your alts? Because like when you do it the second, the third, the fourth time, it is ridiculously smoother once you know what you're doing. I was halfway through friendly on 5 alts that I ran. I had no complaints. I knew what to do with all the boxes. I knew which ones the expensive boxes were that I didn't want to fill, and I can happily leave them on a corpse. I knew what the good ones were. Oh, yep, I'll take that. I'll run back to town. I was going back that way anyway, and now I'll do this while I was going to the auction house. It just felt a lot smoother. The first time, I agree, it was wonky. It was weird to get used to. And then once you know what you're doing, it's fucking smooth. It's schmick. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
I did it before the nerf, and it took way too long for me, and that put me off of ever trying to do it on an alt. So, but now that you're saying that, it feels smoother the second time around. I might try it, but I was hoping, I know it's never going to happen, that the rep would turn like account wide. I would have much preferred that, so I only had to do it on one character, but that's just me.
I hit friendly on my warrior and have stopped. I'm just gonna wait and see what they do with the next band of the rep before I go and steal more chests from questers in Southern Barrens.
So depending on what they do next phase, given that we're all going to be in PvP enabled zones now, the competition for those boxes, depending on what the rewards are at Revered and Exalted, competition for those boxes is going to be insane.
I won't be shocked if it like at the moment it just stops at honored. I wouldn't be surprised if like phase 2 launches, the cap gets raised and just the same waylaid boxes we have now continue to give rep, and someone will find it out on the first day and realize that you can just go open boxes in barons again and pump your
Oh,
rep up to
I've
5.
got a silver box already made sitting on my hunter ready to hand in. Just to see if it works.
Yeah, I'll be surprised. I'll be happy to know if it doesn't, but I won't be shocked if it does work.
I'm just thinking the STV box box mafia. Let's call it the box mafia.
Punchy, I agree that it's easier now that they dropped the restriction to friendly, but as I said, like it's still, if you do it on an alt now, and like I say, you keep in mind that you know what you're doing, you'll wind up halfway to honored before you hit 25 anyway. So if you got to 25, and even if they hadn't changed it, you're on an alt, you've got to 25, and you're like, oh fuck, I've got to do this stupid waylaid supplies grind, and then you look at your rep bar and you're like, oh, I only need to hand in 5 boxes. It's like an hour to an hour and a half. That's not that bad. It's much cruisier when you know what you're doing. But anyway, last one. Fred, constructive criticism. Let's go out on a bang.
Sure, I've said it before, but as an enhanced enjoyer, I gotta ask for a reversion of the nerf to Wild Strikes. And I will make the argument not about Shaman at first, which is just think about thematically what's happening here. We have your master blacksmith, warrior paladin. You know, you've got your sharpening stones. You even got a special recipe that's only in Black Fathom Depths, and you got an enchanting mat to make really special sharpening stones. You put that on to give your weapon an extra edge. Or you're a rogue. You know, you're a master of poison. You get to pick whatever poison you want to have for your weapon. You know, you're prepared for the fight, and you know exactly who your next opponent is and what the poison has to be. Or you're a shaman. You call on your pact of the elements to put some elemental weapon, you know, to bless your weapon with the power of earth or something like that. Turns out, if you do any of the above, you just fucked yourself, because you're in a group with a feral druid, and they give you something called Wild Strikes, which is way better than any of those 3 things I just said. And all that thematic, you know, flavor that you just got from your class, from your spec, from your profession, you might as well throw it out the window. That, I think, it feels really bad. And it also doesn't make much sense, because we're talking about a feral druid. They're like inspiring you to fight harder with the fact that they're like, you know, this ferocious animal that's like making you feel animalistic. Why is this interacting with some sort of enchantment you have on your weapon? And then mechanically, it's super, super frustrating, because if you put poison on your weapon, or you put the sharpening stone on, or you cast Rockbiter, you know, on your main hand, you don't like equip it to your main hand and swap it to your offhands. Well, you can't click that off. So now you're screwed until that falls off. So that, you know, mechanically it feels bad, thematically it feels bad. And then from a balance perspective, really the class that's getting the biggest benefit from this is Enhancement Shaman. And Enhancement Shaman, if you look at the charts, needs the help. They really could use the help that Wild Strikes gives in terms of DPS. You know, Enhancement is no joke, only outperforming Frost Mage, which by the way is the worst mage spec, and Shadow Priest, which I think everyone recognizes is in not a good spot, to put it lightly. And then the final thing is, right now, as the game currently is, everyone has Wind Fury except for Shaman. What sort of world is this? Everyone but Shaman gets Wind Fury, which is wild. Anyway, so yes, I think, you know, for balance reasons, but also for thematic and mechanical reasons, getting rid of the nerf to Wild Strikes that is making it actually apply not to just the temporary weapon enchant slot, but just be a buff, would be a good thing to do. So that's I've said it before, but I'll say it again.
All right. Anyone on that?
I'd love to see them in a world where they like just untap Wind Fury and Wild Strikes completely, like you're saying. Let me use my poisons. Let warriors use their sharpening stones, and obviously that's a big melee buff. So side tangent, I think casters deserve their vanilla totem or raid buff other than a boomy. Like, give them something as wild as essentially like spell Wind Fury at a fraction of the damage. Like, not saying they should have a chance to just repeat Fireball or something, but you know, let the chicken infuse everyone with arcane power so that their spells have a chance to, you know, moonfire the target or something like along that tier of damage. I think spellcasters deserve a cool RNG party buff that melee you've had forever.
Give them a Nightfall party buff, like the Nightfall axe.
Yeah, like something like
where,
that would be fucking cool.
for 10 seconds, 15% increased spell damage to the target from all sources.
Yeah, I think casters have. Sorry, it is a bit of a tangent, but yeah,
That's right.
if it's to buff Wind Fury and Wild Strikes, obviously something has to happen on the caster end of the spectrum, and I'd like to see them go down that avenue for sure.
Well, just on the balance perspective, I mean, it's not really that big of a buff for paladins or warriors because all they get out of this is a sharpening stone, which is what, 2% hit. I mean, that's good. That's 2% of your base damage increase. And rogues, you do get to pick your poison, which could potentially be very good. Really, the main benefit is that you're not forced to use one specific rune. Really, the actual balance effect will be felt really disproportionately by shaman, which is a good thing because they are terrible right now.
Yeah,
And they're terrible.
Yeah,
if they want a DPS, they just go as tank because it's still their best DPS
pretty much. All right,
And it's still a bottom DPS for tanks.
Yeah.
Only Druid loses to it.
we'll end up on a good note here because I think Punchy's come back in to tell me to go fuck myself. Punchy, do it, mate.
I'm a classic enhanced guy, so I know the feels that Fred Monroe is saying. So yeah, just the fact that everyone else can get benefits to our class main ability, but we can't even use it ourselves is a bit of a slap.
Bit of a kick in the dick.
Yeah, and especially rogues getting poisons without having to use poisons is a bit rough as well. When we can't even use the one ability that's Enhance is known for.
Fair enough. All right, well, guys, I was going to do... I did have plans to do, like, more runes that we hope for in Phase 2, but we won't have the time for that. I want to get out of here. We've been here for fucking ever, but it's been amazing, and I've loved every second of it with you guys. We'll say our goodbyes, and I'll do this one first because this might be a longer goodbye. Go, I want to start with you, mate. Just say thank you so much for joining us. I sort of, roped you into this one against your will. I hope you're okay with that. But I'll say this as well. I had a great time on Bob's podcast with you the other day. And, it was, by all means, everyone, go and fucking have a listen to Warcraft Reloaded if you want to hear, not only just more Season of Discovery content, but also me on another podcast. I came in a little bit aggressive, and if you want to just hear me fucking going at people, listen to that episode. But go, fucking speaking of going at people, old Scotty J just putting in every body blow he could into you, mate. Now is your fucking chance to give it back to him. Give it to him. Call him a cunt. Put the boot in.
Scotty is my best friend, and I love him, and he's an amazing person. I have nothing bad to say. Never mind. Fuck that guy. He's an absolute cunt. Yeah, Scotty and I, that's kind of our dynamic, I guess. I'm the punching bag. He delivers the blows, and I take it. And sometimes I come back at him, and I'll give him a taste of his own medicine. But yeah, I was sitting here minding my own business, listening to the show tonight, eating my dinner. I had to scarf it down when you were like, "Hey, why don't you come on?" I was like, "Okay, let me get my food down really quick." But got my food buff, came on, threw a couple points out there. Thanks for having me on.
No, I appreciate it, mate. It was really nice to get you in here for the first time. It was an absolute pleasure, my friend. And like I said, everyone go check out Bob's podcast if you want to hear a bit of Go, and also Scotty J's podcast if you want to hear even more of Go. And thank you so much, Bob, for the super chat, by the way. I should say I appreciate that, mate. And next goodbye, we're going to go to Ubiquitous, the workhorse. Thank you, mate. Any shout outs?
No, just thanks for having me. I've been PvPing the whole time we've been talking. Fuck you, hunters. You deserve that nerf tomorrow from my last 3 hours of data gathering. That's about it.
Very good, mate. I'm writing you like fucking file app here through Season of Discovery. You've been amazing, and I just want to say thank you so much.
Always happy to talk about the game. It's lots of fun on here with everyone. Most people are pretty nice. Well, everyone's pretty nice on here, so...
Everyone except Fred Monroe, who we love to death, mate. Thank you, Fred.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's always a pleasure, man.
Absolutely. Chain, mate, thank you so much for jumping in. I appreciate it. You've been here all 4 hours. You've been a legend.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thank you. I was happy I could make the full duration this time.
No, you did it, mate. You did well. Any shout outs?
Just you know what, Resto Shaman think gonna start to pull ahead of these other healers once we get chain heal. So, and I'm liking what they gave us to begin with because it's all just about holding on to mana. So I'm really excited to really start pumping in Gnome again.
Very good, very good. Holy bones, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. You come in and just you're very measured, very well spoken, very well spoken.
Oh, gee,
and maybe very well spoken. I don't know.
Webcam's not on, right? No, man. Shout out to you. I've been listening to your podcast since day one, back when you were still doing the lore episodes, and you have an A+ product, man. You're the only podcast I've continued to listen to since starting WoW. So
I appreciate that, mate.
Congrats to you, and thank you for keeping this community together, man.
Thank you, mate. Thank you. It's trust me, the community does that on their own, but it's nice to have our own little corner where we can have some fun. All right, guys, I'll end it there, and I might see some of you on the big Phase 1 review in about 2 weeks. That'll be a fucking doozy. Please do keep an ear out for that, everyone. We will come in with some hot and heavy takes from everything we've seen and heard over the last 8 weeks in Season of Discovery, and I'll catch you there. Stream, I'll end it here, and I'll say goodbye to these guys off stream. Thanks so much, everyone. I'll talk to you later. I'll release this podcast probably by tomorrow morning your time. Thanks, guys.